Well, hi there, everybody. It's Stratosphere Lounge. Happy birthday, by the way. Happy birthday. Not to the show or anything. It's just somebody's birthday out there. So if you're watching and it's your birthday, I just want you to know I'm thinking about you. I'm Bill Whittle, and it's the Stratosphere Lounge, episode 55. And that's a big number. 55 is a respectable number for the worst produced show on the internet. I think the fact that we're just able to count to 55 is pretty remarkable, and that 55 files have been saved, or 54, 53 of them anyway. And, man, we've been having fun. Things are so much better than they were this time last week. I remember last time I spoke to you guys, I was in the middle of putting out a lot of fires in terms of fulfillment, which we hadn't done before. So I'll tell you a funny little story about that real quick. And then I'll get going with the show. We had a lot of stuff that was late in terms of our delivery. We changed, as I've said about 1,000 times, changed the tagline from the show, from the website, also on all of our merchandise, from smart conservative thinking to the common sense resistance, and that slowed down. I thought it was going to slow down our product by maybe 2 weeks. It ended up slowing it down by 6. So we had a lot of customer service issues that we had to address, and I sat here on the very floor of the Stratosphere Lounge. I wish you could have seen it. I would have tilted the camera down. The couch behind me was stacked to the roof, past those lovely Sid Mead paintings you see behind me, with our little basic membership cubes. Hang on a second, I'll get one for you right now. I feel like Minecraft, which I've never played, by the way. But this is your basic membership cube, and it contains a mug and a bumper sticker. And for the sustaining members, we put a T-shirt in there as well, which saves us money on bubble wrap. I don't mind telling you. Tink. Another broken mug bites the dust. And then for fleeces and stuff for the producing members, we go ahead and put those in a separate box. But anyway, between last Stratosphere Lounge and this Stratosphere Lounge, I've been sitting on the floor making a lot of 6x6x6 boxes. I mean, I bet I made 100 of them. And got them all shipped out. And we also got word finally on the delay on the Virtual Presidency DVDs. I was supposed to get the last of the compositive elements by the end of October, and I got them last weekend. But they're in my hands now, so we're laying those in. Have to do an audio mix on those. Probably another 7-8 days, I guess, to get the rest of the stuff on our hands here out the door to the DVD authoring house, and they get it for another 4 or 5 days. But hopefully by the end of January, we'll be shipping them out, and I'll keep you guys up to date. But between this show and the last show, I was able to say to all the members, hey, every back order that we have is shipped. Everything that we received word on that was broken or not the right size, we've fixed and shipped. And we had 5 new memberships today, and they went out that afternoon, which is a lovely, 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 lovely feeling for a person like me because, as I said before, the delays and the errors were just unconscionable, just really unforgivable. So I feel like we gave it our best effort to try to make it that way. And as I said to the members in a mailing list, we said our promise to you is you are going to get what you ordered in a timely fashion and the style, the size, and in good condition that you ordered. And if it's not, then we will make it right. We'll make it up to you at our expense. That's what we do. So my dad was a hotel manager. I think customer service it's not only the most important thing, it's the only thing. It's the only reason you have customers is the customers are here for a reason. And if you are not taking care of your customers, then you don't deserve to have any customers. So I'm in a much better emotional space because that really was bugging the living daylights out of me. So everything ships now. We get an order, comes in today. It goes out today. It goes out to 1 business day later at the latest. You get it within a week, with the exception of the DVDs, which we expect to have by the end of January. So that makes me feel an awful, awful, awful lot better. And by the way, I should say that episode 55, for some reason or another, I think these are the best questions I've ever gotten. And I think every one of the top, however many I picked, probably 10 or 11, are just the best. The best. I just am very, very happy with them. I'm anxious to get to them. We'll get to them in just a minute here. Not to turn this into too much of a giant soapbox or snake oil thing. But we did get the fleeces, and now that we're able to punch the orders out, now that we can fulfill an order the day that we get an order, I have to tell you, I am just delighted with these things. They're really, really fabulous and nice, and the men's are kind of, it looks a little more green here than it actually is. It's kind of a charcoal gray-green. And it's got the nice little logo on the front, and across the back, right across the shoulders, it says, right there, somewhere readable, where I can read it. There you go. It says the Common Sense Resistance. And they're damn warm, and they fit really well. And the men's are awesome, but the women's are off the hook. It's kind of a sky blue fleece. And we love them, and they're available for sale, and I don't have to choke on talking about them, because now when somebody orders them, they go right out the door. So anyway, that's the end of that. We got a great show and a lot of great questions. So I guess we will get started. We just, as you know, we have a running commentary here on the Ustream for those of you who are watching live. And so it's always nice we get a little kind of real-time feedback, and we got my friend Wild Goose says we need another Sci-Fi Aurora TSL, and we'll get one. I might do just a big bat TSL. I know I've been teasing that forever, but we're really, really ready to go. And those are embroidered, by the way. Winston Smith, Room 101, maybe the most awesome screen name ever. Those are embroidered, and they look really nice. They're silk screened on the T-shirts, but they're embroidered on the fleeces, and they're very, very cool. I'm very, very, very pleased with them. So, we'll do a Sci-Fi Aurora TSL, and we'll do another. I'm sure we'll do a Big Bat TSL. The reason I've been so delayed on Big Bat is I got to get that thing written. I was hoping to get it written over the holidays, but I had my mom out visiting. It just got away from me. But as soon as I get that copyrighted, I can talk about it a little more, and I'm really excited about those. So, as we get into the new year, you can expect to see TSL merchandise and Common Sense Resistance merchandise, but we definitely are going to have a Stratosphere Lounge t-shirt, Stratosphere Lounge mug for the special people, the special people, the Strato Loungers. So, and somebody just said a military-themed Stratosphere Lounge. I think that's a great, you know what, that is such a good idea. I think maybe if I can remember it, we'll do it next time. We'll do a military-themed question-only kind of thing. There's nothing I'd rather talk about than our military and the people that serve in our military, and the people who, let's not forget the people that make those weapon systems too. Those guys are awesome. I know many of them personally. Many of them, of course, are engineers who used to be in the military, retire and go into the military industrial complex. And it's just awful fun to talk to guys and have them say things like, our new, I think the guidance system on the new Standard 3 anti-missile missile, the Standard 3 missile is what they use on the Aegis-class destroyers and cruisers, seaborne missile that's originally designed for anti-aircraft, anti-air defense, but has been continuously upgraded and modified to the point where that Mark III Standard missile can shoot down incoming missile warheads coming in from outer space. And to hear the guys who work on the guidance system say things to me like, not only can we hit the warhead, you tell us what part of the warhead we want to hit, and we'll hit that. That's awesome. And and then the best part is you realize this is the stuff they're allowed to tell me. When they tell me the stuff that I'm allowed to hear, it's pretty cool. And so you got to figure there's a whole level of cool behind the curtains. And I think I might have said this once before. It is a lifelong goal of mine. There's an odd request for somebody who's in the talking business. But some things I take pretty seriously, and certainly this country is one of them. I've always, my whole life, I've always felt like it would be a point of pride for me, and almost like a responsibility of citizenship for me to get a clearance, for me to get the lowest level security clearance. I actually think there's something almost hard to say, just almost like. Like I say, it's almost like a citizenship thing. If you can't get a security clearance, yeah, I don't know. I know the president can't get one, but I feel like, on some level, lowest level clearance. I'm not an idiot, right? I mean, I'm not ridiculous. I know there are obviously secrets that need to be highly classified secrets. But I honestly don't. I honestly think if you can't pass a security clearance, why what's wrong with you? Why would the average American citizen who loves this country not be able to get one? I guess is what I'm asking, if he needed one. And I'm not saying I need one either. It just would be, for me, it would be one of those things, like maybe like almost like an honorary degree from someplace. It just would be, it would be an honor. That's how I would look at it. Security clearance would make me, it'd be an honor. It'd be an honor just to have the clearance, even if they never used it. Even if they gave me like an honorary clearance, like the kind of awards you give to slow kids at school, with a big gold star and it says Operation Good Job, good job, Bill Whittle, best effort, 2014. Here's your Operation Good Job clearance. You get an honorary clearance for effort, and this clearance allows you to visit the gift shop at CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia, let's say. That would be enough for me. Anyway, weird. And somebody asked, am I used to the new teeth? I'm used to these teeth, which are not the new teeth. These are still the temporaries. I'll probably get the new ones in about 2 weeks. These are little white. They're plastic. The new ones will look a little more natural. They're not, I don't want quite this white. And like I say, a lot of that is the actual permanents are ceramic, and they have a translucent quality that actual teeth have, and these teeth are a little plasticky. I feel a bit like, I was going to say Joe Biden. I don't know why. Joe Biden doesn't strike me as having awfully bad teeth, some sort of a game show parody or anything. Anyway, let's get on with the questions, because the questions are fantastic. They're just fantastic. I love every single one of these today for some reason. And I am having a little bit of trouble. I don't know if it's breathing, if it's allergies. I'm a little trouble catching my breath today. I feel like I've just been running around like a madman all day. And I probably just need some sleep. If I should fall out of frame, you can just call 911 and ask them to report directly to the Stratosphere Lounge. So here we go. The first question today on episode 55 of the Stratosphere Lounge comes from a guy named Charles Staley. And Charles had the top-rated question when I pulled him just a little while ago. He says, Bill, count me as a huge fan. Thank you, Charles. I'm sure if I knew you better, I'd be a huge fan of yours. Please tell me about your thoughts and best practices on personal productivity, goal setting, work ethic, etc. I very much admire your ability to put out great content at a very rapid pace. Would love to know what a typical day looks like for you. And I took this question I was very happy to take this question because I think it's an important question. And you guys know from now, the regulars of the Stratosphere Lounge know that there's almost nothing I won't talk about. I've talked about going to Narcotics Anonymous meetings when I wasn't a drug addict, but going for addictive personality problems. I've talked about antidepressants. I've talked about a lot of things. The thing that is interesting about this question is I think I'm more ashamed to answer this question than I am of any of those other ones. Because, Charles, I got to tell you, I feel like I am the most unproductive guy on the face of the earth. And I'm not looking for compliments, and I'm not trying to blow false humility your way. I actually genuinely, consistently feel like I do nothing but waste time. It's very hard for me to get into a groove with this. Now, I can answer some of this question for you, but the biggest problem I have, so rather than me telling you about all these wonderful things I do, I feel like I just struggle and tread water and splash about and create some output. But I don't think I'm very efficient at it. And so I'll tell you the one thing that hurts my efficiency the most, by a wide margin, and for all of my life, my productivity is really, 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 really hurt by the fact that I've never in my adult life had a regular schedule. I've had regular jobs, obviously, but in show business, even you get to drift into those around 9:30 or 10 in the morning, which means that I'm always up late. I've been a night owl all my life. I remember the first time I stayed up all night, I was probably 8 or 9 or 10. I remember clearly remembering, hey man, the sun's coming up and I haven't been to sleep yet. But I am a late night person. And my natural inclination, if I didn't have anything to do the next day, is to drift to at least 2:30 in the morning, and more often 3:34. And that's a real problem. Big, serious, life-destroying problem for me. I was talking about this and working on this just today. I actually, my biggest problem is not so much setting an alarm in the morning, because obviously I have to get up in the morning. I have to go down and shoot trifectas, and I have a radio call in tomorrow morning for the Texas thing. I'm introducing my good friend Ted Cruz this coming weekend. So obviously I can get up in the morning to catch airplane rides. What I really need, and I've tried once or twice, but I really need to just get more on it, Charles, is I have to have an alarm that goes off at nighttime. I really actually need to have an alarm that goes off somewhere around 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And if I need some kind of sleeping pill or something to unwind, I'll take it for a while. Because after a while, I think after a month or two, if I was getting up at the same time, going to bed at the same time, I would start to develop some sort of diurnal rhythm, some kind of circadian rhythm. But I don't have one. I never go to bed at the same time. I hardly ever wake up at the same time, and it makes me tired. It just makes you tired all the time, and I have almost a pathological fear of being tired. Every time I start to feel tired, it's like, oh man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to do what I wanted to do today. But during those days, and there's been more and more of them, and I am improving. I've been improving quite a lot since we opened the website, to be honest with you, because I just have to get the work done. I do find when I get up early, I not only get a lot more done. I mean, I'll suddenly be like 11 o'clock, and I'm almost done for the day, and it's like, dude, you're not normally even waking up till now. But I also find that I'm more willing to write in the morning, which is odd because I always feel like I'm much sharper late at night. But the fact is, late at night, I guess I'm kind of tired and I want to get stuff done. When I force myself to get up in the morning, I can get mechanical work done. I can do the kind of work, I can write trifectas in the morning. I can write afterburners in the morning. But if I was writing a movie script, when I go to Big Bat Problems, which I was hoping to do over this last break, and I'll probably just have to dig myself out of the immediate schedule, and then I'll just go take 2-3 days or do this. What I will probably do with Big Bat Problem, what I usually have the most success with is I'll just hop in my little airplane if I can and fly out to Pismo Beach, which is about a 90-minute flight for me. Remember, my airplane is the only airplane certified to survive a bird strike from the rear, so it's a slow airplane. But 90 minutes to Pismo Beach, and I'll probably just rent a hotel for a couple nights. And then the way I really get the writing done is for me to just write till I sleep till I wake up, write till I sleep, and then just live the movie. Because Big Bat, certainly, and just about everything else I've ever done, by the time I get down to write it, I have seen Aurora hundreds of times. And I've seen Big Bat Problem from the first frame to the last frame. I've seen Big Bat Problems 50 times. Every single shot, every single line of dialogue, I got it. I just have to put it on paper. And I love that aspect of developing things. I love the aspect of, hey man, that's just a snappy little transaction, great little piece of dialogue there. I have a small role in Big Bat Problems, and I have an even smaller role in Aurora. I don't know if I have any lines in Aurora. I suspect I probably don't. In Aurora, I'm just going to be an astronaut. I'm going to be one of the backup pilots in a spacesuit, and I get to sit in the cockpit. And there'll be some B-roll shots of me, because the main thing is about two astronauts who go on this mission with the rest of the crew, and I'm not one of those guys because I'm not that good an actor, and I don't really think you can act and direct at the same time. But I'm enough of an actor to be able to play a couple of things. And in Big Bat Problems, I am a pilot, and I might have a line or two there. And I've got, I'm going to be taking my little Sky Arrow airplane, my little, you know what? Give me a second. I hate to do this. You never know where, sometimes, I think Andrew Clavin said this. He didn't come up with it because he didn't come up with anything. He's not smart enough to come up with an original thought. But Clavin said to me one time when we were talking about writing, he said, you often know what hole the rabbit goes into, but you never know what hole it's going to come out of. And that's exactly what writing is. You have an idea of where you want to go, but you don't really know where that hole is going to come out, where the rabbit's going to come out, which hole it's going to come out of. It's like that whack-a-mole game. You just start hitting things and they just pop up somewhere else. So I would have pulled this picture earlier if I'd known we were going to end up talking about it, but let me see if I can find it. Just because the airplane I own is so unusual. The Sky Arrow, most people have never heard of it or seen it, and I've only got about 10,000 photographs here, and I always have to dig for it. And one of these days, I swear to God, I'm going to put this in its own little folder, so I don't have to do this anymore. But anyway, to answer your question in the usual roundabout, take me 30 minutes to get through a question way, Charles, I usually just go out and spend a weekend in doing it. But my day-to-day activity is very erratic. So when you ask what my day looks like, I don't have a typical day. One thing I can tell you, though, is that if I had to tell you what I do with most of my day, I spend most of my day reading. I just read a lot. I am on the internet reading stuff and trying to catch, thoughts and trying to catch drifts. And one of the reasons it's so hard to credit people on the internet is it's like being inside this information tornado. And I'm pretty sure I've mentioned that before too. Sometimes if I had to really describe what I do for a living, I feel like I live in a tornado of information. I go out into the internet every day, and it's like being Dorothy inside the tornado. And oh, look, there's a cow. Oh, hey, there's a lady riding a bike. And these little pieces of information that I just kind of capture in the course of reading an article, I'll use someday. Maybe I won't, but more often than not, I'll remember something, and then I can usually remember enough of a phrase about it to go back afterwards and resource it. I don't save things. I don't save links or anything, but I do remember things, and then if I need it in an essay, what was that thing about? What did Lincoln say about this or whatever? So what I like to do is I like to kind of get out there and fly my little airplane. So here's a picture of my airplane, my little Sky Arrow, and it's going to be in Big Bad Problems. So here's a picture. And it's just really, really cool. Pilot sits in the front and the passenger sits in the back. It's a pusher prop. And I'm giving very serious thought to painting it. I'm taking serious thought to painting that airplane like navy gray, intentionally painting it up to be like an F-18, and not trying to fool anybody like it's a real F-18, like it's a conceit that this pilot has, that this is a kind of he's taken this little sport. It's not a light sport, it's certified in the normal category. But basically, if you can imagine that airplane with like a white conical nose for the radar section, everything kind of a slate gray, with a suppressed U.S. Stars and bars on the side and on the wings. It said Navy, and then a little squadron logo on the tail, and have everything, and sort of ejection warning things by the canopy doors. That'd be really cool. And had a really neat thought for the pilot, because in Big Bat Problems, basically Big Bat Problems is kind of like Buckaroo Banzia. You've got this ragtag army of weirdos chasing these gigantic alien bats across the country, across the Southwest. So, so I'm thinking about kind of painting it up and getting a helmet and a flight suit and all the things I always wanted to wear, and it'd be a good excuse to do it because I'll be doing it for a movie. And so it'll be really cool. It'll be really a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to it. So anyway, I'm so sorry. I know I do ramble. But Charles, the fact of the matter is my goal setting is poor. I have somebody help me out a little bit sometimes with a to-do list for the day, because I tend to drop things. I know I've dropped a lot of emails. I've dropped very terrific offers from people and friends, and so much stuff comes my way in a typical day. But I am able to set a major priority. So, for example, up until one of the reasons we've been kind of light on our on my content for the last 2-3 weeks has been I had fire to put out. The fire was serious customer service issues for a company that had my name on it. And so the top priority for me, Charles, for the last 2-3 weeks was put these fires out. Make this right if you can. If you can make it up to people, apologize to people, get them what they want, let them know where the things are, let them know what the delays are, get that fire out. And so that fire is more or less out now. I think it's pretty much out. So now I can start moving back into getting some of our content out. We got a bunch of firewalls that are virtually written. I've got another virtual presidency sets that are going to come out. And I'm actually thinking of doing a flying video. I went out and bought some GoPro cameras for Christmas. And I want to put them on the airplane. And you'll know I truly believe in aerodynamics, air pressure, and Bernoulli's principle when I strap a $350 camera onto the underside of my airplane wing with a suction cup. The suction cup, according to GoPro, is good to 150 miles an hour. And my airplane won't do 150 miles an hour if you cut it up and put it in a box and dropped it out of another airplane. It wouldn't do 150 miles an hour. But it'll do 100, and so we'll see. But I'd like to do a flying video. I think I might do that this weekend if I can, although I'm going to Texas, and I'll post a link for that on the Facebook thing. So, Charles, I just wanted to take your question only to say that I'm really the wrong person to ask about this. I genuinely do just thrash around until I get done what needs to get done. I do put it in long hours, I'll say that. I work 7 days a week, and I'm usually here at the office until 9 or 10 at night. I don't usually get home much before then. So I think I probably make up a fair amount of my lack of efficiency by putting in more time than I probably should. But listen, with all that said, the last thing I want to do is sound like a whiner and a complainer. I'm real hard on myself in terms of productivity. I know it could be a lot more productive than I am, and I'm going to have to be, and I will be. But with all that said, I mean, I've worked since I was 13, so that's 30 years? No, 40. It's funny how you lose track of that extra decade, huh? I've been working nonstop, honestly, for 42 years now. And I've been working nonstop for 40 years since I was 13 years old, 42, 43 years, 44 years, 45, something like that. Coming up specifically so I could get to this point. Now I live a life where I don't have to work for anybody else. I have shoot days at PJTV. I have shoot days up here, but I'm not punching a clock, and I do get to do what I want to in the course of my day. So it's like everything else, Charles, it comes with a price. I don't have to tell any business owners this. The nice thing about being a boss is you get to set your own hours. And the bad thing about being the boss is your hours are usually double, or in the neighborhood of double, what your paid employees' hours are. You just get a lot of flexibility, but you also have to be there first and stay there last. So, actually, Charles, I'd love to have this question again in, let's see, June, because I really do think that things are going to be improving quite a lot for you. They're just going to have to, because we get a lot more done. And I have to get a lot more done. And the more stuff you get done, the more stuff you do. That old saw about if you want something done, ask a busy person is absolutely true. I am never less effective or productive than I am when I have nothing but time on my hands. That's when nothing gets done. So anyway, hope that answered a little bit. I'm actually still quite a bit ashamed of that. Anyway, moving on. Wes Walker has a very simple question. He says, Robin Hood, hero, villain, why? Is it Atlas Shrugged where there's a gigantic monologue about Robin Hood, how he's the worst man in history, robbing from the rich and giving to the poor? Here's what I think is interesting about Robin Hood, as whether or not he's a hero or a villain. If I had to describe Robin Hood today in America, I'd say he's a villain. Robbing from the rich and giving to the poor this is the whole entire point, Wes. It's the whole entire point of the question is, in America, in a free market economy where there is legislated equality of opportunity and really remarkable, astonishing progress in terms of mentally, spiritually accepting everyone as having an equal opportunity. Then in a free market society such as ours, then Robin Hood is a villain. Because in a free market society, I believe that wealth is generated. It's created out of thin air. It's not a zero-sum game. And then and the people who are wealthy, unless they're second or third generation, and many of them as well, but But people who are spectacularly wealthy worked for it. They came up with something of enormous value. Bill Gates is an example. I think probably Steve Jobs is the best example. Look, I mean, Steve Jobs is worth billions and billions of dollars because he had the vision to come up with this. Socialists and progressives will tell you that, the total wealth of Bill Gates should have been divided by the number of people it takes to make a cell phone. So in other words, Bill Gates, if you really want to talk to an actual progressive, an actual communist, one of these people really believes what they say, they'll tell you that Steve Jobs essentially should make the same as the guy who builds the phone, right? No more and no less. Now, most people don't believe that, but most people think that, maybe Steve Jobs is way too rich, but you can't put a limit on what he's done. This device, if this were just a toy, it would be a remarkable device. But it's not. It adds enormous productivity to the day, and it steals a fair amount of productivity as well. But I've never been bored ever since I've had an iPhone. And it costs a lot of money, and I make a decision to pay for it, and this is the third one I've owned, I guess. So if Robinhood were to come along today and steal Steve Jobs' money and give it to poor people, especially poor people who are on welfare, he would be taking the rewards for the hard work, because it was hard work and persistence. That's one thing I've learned about running a business is it's just persistence. You wake up some days and just think, oh my God, really? Everything's on fire. Everything's on fire and everything's gone wrong and things cost and there's a bill you hadn't expected and there's this and your rent and everything's on fire all the time. And the one thing I never really realized about the running the business part of it is just the persistence of getting up every day and saying, all right, well, I got to put these fires out now. So when you talk about stealing from a guy who had to go through what Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak had to do in order to become the billionaires they became, it's not just. It's not fair to take the rewards of their years and years and years and years of hard work and effort and vision and imagination and persistence and belief in themselves and just hand it off to people who never had any of that. And in many cases now, after we get to the third generation of welfare, people who not only have never had any desire to do any work, but really have never done any work in their lives. There's entire generations of Americans now who've been so ruined by this cradle-to-grave entitlement that they don't know anything about hard work. They don't know anything about the feeling you get from working hard and getting a paycheck or a reward, starting a business and seeing revenues just appear in the bank when people voluntarily give you money. They voluntarily make a deposit into your bank account. It's amazing. It's really amazing, and it's a great tragedy. And like any other untapped resource, if we have 20, 30, 40 million people on welfare, I'm certainly not suggesting that all of them are Steve Jobs or even some of them are Steve Jobs or whoever else. But there are some people out there who could have been world changers, could have been people who really would have improved the quality of life all across this world. And they never got the chance because they'd been born into a world where they'd been handed the bare bones minimum to live. So Robin Hood today would be a villain. But the interesting question is, was Robin Hood a villain at the time Robin Hood was Robin Hood? And I actually don't think he was. I think Robin Hood was a hero in the period in which Robin Hood was set. And this is what I find interesting about the question. How can it be that Robin Hood, in the time of Robin Hood, in the time of Richard the Lionheart, this would be about the 1200s, somewhere in that ballpark, how can it be that the same guy with the same actions can be a hero in 1200 AD and be a villain in 2010 or 2015 AD? He hasn't changed. He hasn't changed because he's fictional. He hasn't changed. His story hasn't changed. He was a hero back then, I think, because, and I think this is the entire point, he was a hero in the Middle Ages because in the Middle Ages there was not a lot of wealth produced at all. And the wealth that was produced was commandeered by force by powerful people who often inherited their power through bloodlines, not through their own effort. And whether they inherited it through their own effort or not is irrelevant. The fact is that there's very, very little wealth actually produced. And what wealth was produced was taken at the point of a sword from the people that produced the wealth, the peasants. And the peasants had no chance of moving up. Essentially none. There's probably a minuscule chance that one or two of them could have found themselves squires and maybe through some miracle combination of good luck and personal heroism and effort, might have found themselves knighted and slowly brought their family into the nobility where they could steal and pillage all they wanted to as well. So really, when you get to the bottom of the question, Wes, it comes down to an idea that I'm going to term lubrication, slipperiness. How slippery is your society? In other words, when you hear about income inequality in America, we still find ourselves using these terms. Oh, these are the less fortunate. He's not fortunate. These people are very fortunate. These people are unfortunate. And they make it sound as if the wealth fairy just flew in certain windows and tapped certain people on the shoulders and didn't tap others. That's just not true. It is absolutely true that you are born into a wealthy family or a poor family or a middle-class family. That is just sheer random luck. There's nothing you can do about that. But here in America, at least prior to the last several years or decade or two, we had, by design, the slipperiest, most lubricated society in the history of the world. In fact, when you get right down to it, the country was designed for that. It was designed to be economically slippery. That mobility and was built into the system, and that all of the legal and jurisprudence kind of aspects of the Constitution and the system of laws and the system of government were designed specifically to stop powerful people from preventing common people from making money. It's really what the Constitution's about. It's designed to stop the elites from letting the common man make some money. And when you talk about the American dream, when we talk about making money, this is always this terrible thing is ascribed to us. He's just in it for the money. It's like, well, yeah, the money is what allows you to purchase the rewards. The rewards are your own house, and your own house means that you don't have to worry about eviction. In your own house, you have pride in ownership. You can invest in it. It's an investment. You want to put a pool in. You want to work harder than you normally would have to pay your bills. If you want to do extra work and build a pool into your house, not only do you get to enjoy the pool, but the value of your investment has risen. So when you talk about the American dream is the viscosity of allowing individual people to move up through hard work. And if you have a viscous, that's the word I was looking for, if you have a viscous, mobile society, then the ethics of Robin Hood change. If everybody is born to peasantry or nobility, and you cannot change it through your own efforts, if you are permanently locked into a state of poverty from which no amount of hard work will ever save you, or conversely born into a world of nobility through which no amount of laziness or mendacity or vileness will ever lower you, then Robin Hood does become an agent of justice. He becomes basically saying these people are working and they're not receiving their reward. They're not receiving a reward commensurate with their work. And the people who aren't working, the people who are pointing swords at other people and taking the work of the peasants by force, are getting rich. But they're not getting rich through work. They're getting rich through coercion. And that's really what it comes down to. So Robin Hood in the 1200s is a hero because he's redistributing wealth. You probably never thought you'd hear me say that, but in the 1200s in England, there was no way to become wealthy other than to redistribute the wealth. They're making very little wealth of their own, and the wealth that was being produced by the peasantry was taken at the point of a sword. In America, in the 20th century, certainly, and in the first part of the 21st century, hard work is rewarded, and you are not locked into a position of poverty or a position of wealth. We talk a lot about people bootstrapping themselves up from poverty, and one of the things that we don't talk about much is how many rich people become poor. And if you really want to look at that, the best way to look at it is to look at the second or third generation of genuinely rich people, the third generation Carnegies or the third generation Vanderbilts or the third generation Scrantons or any of these guys. I put up on Facebook today part one of an interview with a guy who wrote a book called The Myth of the Robber Barons, a guy named Bert Folsom. And he showed how many of these so-called robber barons were in fact market entrepreneurs who did enormous good for the public, lowered prices by a factor of 10, in some cases by a factor of 100. So what he also looked at was you get a guy like Andrew Carnegie who comes to America with, what, $14 or something from Scotland, becomes one of the richest men in the world. And yet, when you look at generations, second or third or fourth generations, all the Carnegies or the Scrantons, I think the Scrantons he looked at a little more carefully. Third generation, second generation, but third generation people, really all they do is just spend money that was made by their father or their grandfather. And that money just gets spent out, and next thing you know, these people die, if not in poverty, then in mediocrity. They lower their station. It's kind of like a dune that's piled up by the efforts of one person, and then the sand just gets blown away and flattened out again. So I think it's a really interesting question, and the ethics of whether Robin Hood is a hero or a villain are based upon the environment in which he operates. If it's an environment where hard work is rewarded, and therefore you become rich through hard work, innovation, vision, and providing people something that they want and that they voluntarily give their own hard work up for in terms of money, then taking from that person is stealing. It's vile. It's stealing. It's stealing that person's brilliance or hard work or persistence or whatever. If, on the other hand, if work is being taken at the point of a sword from people who have little and given just even less, even to the point of death, basically, at the point of a sword to somebody who not only didn't earn it but doesn't deserve it, then Robin Hood is a hero. It's an interesting question. Moving on, Charles Staley asks, Bill, how would you define authentic masculinity? Oh my God, what the hell do I know about that? I think the first thing I would probably say about it is having just come off a pretty fairly traumatic experience, I think I probably would start that answer, Charles, by saying I think authentic. I think the first step of actually being a man, the first most important step is accepting responsibility for your own actions. You know, you have to accept responsibility for your own actions, and you have to take the. I think the definition of manhood and masculinity, one of them would be a commitment to doing the right thing rather than doing the smart thing, or certainly the easy thing. I know, having come off of a situation where I felt like I just really let people down, basically through my own lack of oversight, through my own assumptions, that the first thing you have to do in a case of that, if you want to make that right, and probably the first step in authentic masculinity is the desire to want to make things right, the desire to want to make things right, to live up to your word, to be honorable, to be decent, to be reliable, to be worthy of people's trust is I think, an aspect of masculinity. And so when you find you failed in that situation, I think responsibility is really important. You really just have to step up and say, I made a big mistake here. I let you down. It's not easy to say that. And many people will avoid it. Many people just don't have the guts or the courage or the strength to say, look, I completely screwed this up. I'm terribly sorry. Here's what I'm doing about it. And I hope this will make it right. And if it hasn't made it right, you tell me what else I need to do to make it right. If I can make it up to you, I will. That is a profoundly important quality, the ability to accept responsibility for your own actions. And I think that's one of the many things we see being bleached out of society today. Is this idea that this kind of group responsibility. Certainly you see this from progressives. A guy commits a murder. It's not his fault. He was abused as a child, and the kind of cynical, cold thing to say is, the guy didn't have a puppy when he was a kid, therefore, he couldn't help himself when he killed that family. Both cases are true. You look at the background of a guy like, Dahmer or Ted Bundy, or any of these guys. Some of these people suffered. Some of these people suffered just unbelievable abuse. And it's true that that's not their fault. But it's also true that a lot of people suffer abuse and they don't go out and murder people. And it's also true on some level that when you are committing some heinous act and somebody's begging for mercy, you make a decision to continue on doing that. And I don't know anybody. None of my friends are able to inflict that kind of pain on people. None of the people I know are able to inflict cruel pain or more pain than is needed than when they're dealing with their enemies. And it's kind of the essence of honorable warfare, right? Somebody surrenders. Okay, we got them down. They're down? Yep. Okay, that's it. We don't have to keep kicking them now that they're down. So all of these qualities, I think, are important in our idea of masculinity. And when you really come down to it, I think the single word I would probably tie most into masculinity, as I understand it, manhood anyway, is honor. And honor is more than just outrage, and it's more than just the appearance of doing well. You can often find, and I think Twain made this point too, I've always been fascinated by this idea of moral courage versus physical courage. I know I've told this story before, but I think Twain talked about during the Spanish-American War, we had our fleet in Manila Bay, and I think the Spanish had sunk a wreck or something along these lines that was blocking a passage, and they asked for volunteers among the entire Navy, among the entire U.S. fleet in Manila Bay. So we need 10 volunteers to go out on this mission, and it's probably a suicide mission, probably not coming back. And apparently every single person in the fleet volunteered. Something like that. This story just rings a bell. And Twain said, that's remarkable, and that is courage. There's no question that's courage. It's physical courage. You're going to go out there, and you're going to risk your life, and you may die. In fact, you're likely to die. But Twain's point was, is it moral courage? Because even though you're likely to die, if you do die, you will die a hero. You will die a hero. You'll be venerated. All of your friends will clap you on your back if you survive, and they'll drink a toast to you if you don't, and there'll be a statue for you, and there'll be a school named after you. And Twain said, if it was equally important to the success of the mission and the success of the war for somebody to go out there and do something reprehensible. In other words, what if 10 people had to go volunteer and be seen as traitors? Let's just imagine a situation where there was a certain amount of subterfuge that was necessary in order to get the fleet into the bay or something, and what was needed were 10 American traitors. Even though they weren't actual traitors, they had to be seen as traitors and executed as traitors or whatever. How many people would have volunteered if it turned out that rather than being seen as heroes, they would be seen as villains? Even though the cause and the outcome is the same. In other words, you want to win the war. Well, Twain's point was physical courage is common especially among service people, but moral courage is much, 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 much rarer than that. And that's a really interesting question. He also talked about lynchings, and he was talking about lynchings in Missouri, and you could just see it just ripped the heart out of him because lynching had spread to Missouri. And he was talking about mobs. And he said in any given mob, if there's 100 people in a mob, there's probably only 1 or 2 of the people in the mob actually genuinely want to string that person up. And everybody else is doing this social proof thing where no one wants to be seen as being a friend of the victim. No one wants to be seen as not wanting justice for the poor Southern flower or any of this stuff. And so he said that the mob has a group mentality and a group will that is very, very weak. And he would talk in this essay, I think called The United States of Lyncherdom. Twain basically said, he mentioned a couple guys by names. I should have the names memorized, and I'm a little ashamed that I don't. But he mentioned a couple cases where a single marshal, a single man, would stand in front of a lynch mob, one man in front of 100 or 1,000. And they've got some poor black man or whoever, somebody who they've decided is guilty, and they're going to run him up to a tree and string him up. And Twain said time and time and time again, you would find a case where one man, often unarmed, will stand in front of a lynch mob and say something to the effect of, I can't stop you, all of you, from stringing that man up to a tree, but I can tell you this, you're going to have to kill me in order to do it. And often if they're arms, will say, and several of you are going with me. Twain's point was that kind of moral courage turns oceans, turns mountains. He said if we had 10,000 of that breed, we wouldn't have another problem in the world today. And I think that's absolutely right. So I think the essence of that masculinity thing, Charles, is the moral courage to do the right thing, not the smart thing, not the easy thing, the right thing, even if it costs you, even if it is extremely disadvantageous to you, that there is a higher benefit to be gained, not even for you personally, because obviously you can make a case where the exercise of honor costs you your life. But I think probably even when you talk about people who give their lives for honor and, this Nathan Hale kind of thing, I think ultimately what they're saying is it's worth my life for me to have lived and for other people to live in a society that is based on honor, because that society is so much better place to live that it's worth dying for. And this is all very high-level philosophical, theoretical stuff. What it really comes down to is, ultimately, you will often see real men, genuine men, masculine men, as I understand men, who will leap into a burning building, or they will step in front of a train, or they'll jump off a pier to rescue not their children but somebody else's children. So that's it, right? That's it. You do the right thing when you have to. And you don't get to write an excuse for yourself. And, everybody fails, everybody makes mistakes, and everybody, there are moments when people fail tests of courage. And if they fail a test of courage or competence or something, it stays with them, it bothers them, and they can't sleep until they get it right. So Andrea Kent just points out that's not masculinity, that's women have moral courage as well. That's absolutely true. That's 100% true. That's absolutely true. But you do often see, let me put it to you this way. What I think the essence of masculinity is using that same sense of moral courage. You're absolutely right. I think it was Andrea. Yes, you're absolutely right. Women have that sense of moral courage too. Men have greater physical strength and they have greater speed, significantly greater strength. And so when I see a male applying his greater strength to protect people who may have the same heart, may have the same moral courage, but who are physically weaker than themselves, that's the essence of it for me, I guess. It would be the essence of you're strong and you're big and you're tougher. And things still hurt, Burning buildings hurt you just as much as they hurt a small woman or a small child or anybody else. But when you see people using their strength, their physical strength and their whatever emotional strength they can bring to bear, when they use their own physical strength and emotional strength and interpose that between other people and harm, maybe that's what I'm aiming for. Anyway, I've talked about this before. I don't want to spend too much more time on it. We got such great questions today, and we always seem to have such limited time. So, Joshua Tiemens, apparently there's a guy named Tiemens out there, asks, Bill, do you ever wish you could take the Founding Fathers into the future and take them on a tour of present-day America? That is an interesting question, Joshua, because I've occasionally thought about the Founding Fathers, but it's not usually them. I usually think about bringing people into the future, and the two people the three people, I suppose I should say, I think about the most are I've often just idly sat in airports or wherever and thought, I wish the Wright brothers could see this. Now, one of them, of course, did. I can never remember which one was it. Was it Orville who lived a long time? Yeah, I think that was it. Wilbur was the one who died relatively young, of scarlet fever or something. I probably got it backwards. I've often wished I could take the Wright brothers and bring them just to the Hertz rent-a-car here in L.A. and have them stand there while a 747 flies right overhead and just have them see it. Because the great thing about the Wright brothers is it's hard to see freedom, it's hard to see the rule of law, but man, you see a fully loaded jumbo jet screaming over your head at 200-300 feet. This city of aluminum overhead, flying under control and safely doing it for 12, 13 years now without a major fatality in an American carrier, major American jetliner. And to see the intricacy of the web of it, and think about all the people that had to be involved. So the Wright brothers come to mind quite a lot. And the other person I keep wanting to bring back is Mark Twain, mostly because I'd like to talk with him and hang out with him. I'd like to see what he has to say about these things. I think on one hand he would be unsurprised by much of what shocks us today. I think he understood the kind of fundamental ludicrousness sometimes of human nature. But I've often wanted to see his reaction to things. I've often felt terrible about the fact that, so much of his life got so bitter towards the end. He was so angry, angry at God and angry at everything else. His son was taken from him shortly after birth, and he had 3 daughters, and he had an actual family life there for 10 or 12 years. And then one of the daughters died, and then his wife died, and then another daughter died on Christmas Eve. Died of epilepsy in a bathtub in his house. And he just got so angry. And I think one of the things that makes me think about bringing Twain into the future is it looked a little bit into what killed all of his family members and ended up killing him too. And it's nothing for us to fix today. Nothing. It's just routine hospital visit probably would have solved all of these things. In fact, when I was reading about his life and all of these hardships and things, I actually realized not only would a hospital have saved his life, but a veterinarian would have saved all of his family, almost certainly. That's a hard job, by the way, being a veterinarian. You're a full-on doctor and your patients can't tell you what's wrong. That's a remarkable job they do. But, things like that just really put things into perspective for you, just how far we've come. I had an awful lot of dental work done just a few weeks ago, 6 or 7 hours of it. And as a guy who's been fully conscious for 5 root canals and had more Novocaine shot into his gums prior to that workday back in late December than he particularly wants to count. I'm very grateful to live in a time when there's Novocaine. And in the last particular case, I just sat in a dentist chair, in a comfortable padded chair, and they brought me a little paper cup with this kind of brownish liquid and said, knock it back. And I said, okay. And he said, you should start feeling something in about 10 or 15 minutes. And I remember feeling, my eyes feel a little gone, out. Next thing I know, I'm done. 6 hours later. Anesthesia, my friends, is a blessing. I remember Stonewall Jackson muttering, what a blessing or what a mercy, one of those things, just muttering it when they gave him some ether because he had to take his arm off. This is just before he died, probably of pneumonia. So anesthetics and all these other things. As far as the Founding Fathers go, though, Joshua, I'd like to bring them back and give them a tour of America. It's funny. I think even 10 years ago, I would have said, give them a tour of America and just be so proud to show them everything. Show them the Apollo launch pads down at Kennedy and show them, the space shuttle and, take them up to the International Space Station, let them look down on America from orbit, tell them there's flags on the moon, tell them we've sent probes to interstellar space, just pride. And now when you ask the question today, my first response is, I don't know if I could face them, honestly. How do you explain that to them? How do you explain all the loss of these liberties to them? It'd be lovely if we could say, yeah, they had just had more guys than we did, Ben and George and John and, Paul, almost Paul, John, George. It's a shame there's not a founding father named Ringo. That would have been really awesome. But how do you explain to them that it wasn't even... we didn't fight and lose. We just didn't fight. We just sat here while all these things just got eroded away. That's a hard thing to say. That's a hard thing to face for them, I think. So I think if I were to bring the Founding Fathers back today, I think what I would do is give them a quick little airplane tour of the Capitol and the country and show them a couple of nifty things And then I would sit down with them and say, you need to take the qualifying clause out of the Second Amendment, not because we don't understand it. We do understand it. But a lot of people don't. A lot of people think this well-regulated militia thing means you have to have a well-regulated militia. We know that's not your intent, but that's how it's being misinterpreted. And they would laugh at us. They say, well, who could possibly interpret it that way? I said, well, you can breed a lot of idiots with enough prosperity. So there'd be that. I would warn them that the preamble would be used as legal precedent. I would warn them, and they would say to me, that's absurd. The preamble to the Constitution is simply a rhetorical device. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It's good to have you here. Thank you for joining us. Please sit down. That's what the preamble is. When we start allocating powers to Congress and to the presidency, that's where the Constitution means business. And if I tried to explain to them that, no, there's a line in the preamble that says provide for the common welfare, which means we can tax people for anything, selectively tax some people and not tax others, give some money from some people to others, and spend far more than we ever take in. It means there's no limit on congressional spending or power. If they'd said that was all part of the general welfare in the preamble, they would have laughed, and we would have had to say, no, I know you try to make it idiot-proof, but you're not making it. You can make something foolproof, but you can't make it damn foolproof. We got a lot of damn fools out there, and the Commerce Clause. I would say you need to say the federal government, the states, and the people. And you got to be a little clearer about that. They never wrote anything. The miracle of the Constitution is that if the Constitution is followed to the letter, basically, if it's followed to the clear intent of the Constitution, we don't have any problems. They didn't miss anything. People said, what constitutional amendment would you put into place to fix these things? I said, the constitutional amendment I would add to fix these things is that you have to read and follow the Constitution, period. They understood this. They got it exactly right. They got it. This is why I have religious feelings about the Constitution. They got it exactly correct. And all we have to do is listen, but we don't. So, yeah, Commerce Clause, all this nonsense. So anyway, I do wish I could bring them back. I'd be a little ashamed of myself. Maybe I'd have to wear a bag over my head. Allo Conson says, by waiting to write a lucrative tell-all memoir instead of resigning as Secretary of Defense, did Robert Gates undercut his own credibility? If Gates knew our troops were dying only because Obama feared the political fallout of a strategy change, then isn't Gates complicit by staying quiet until now? You're damn right he's complicit, Allo. Better late than never, I guess, but not much better late than never. It's not just Gates. I am absolutely astonished at the magnitude, the numbers. Just forget about the scale in terms of the scale of the issue, but just think about the numbers of people who are working in various government agencies, generals in the Pentagon, directors at the National Security Agency, people in the Department of Justice. You can bring in all these top-level Chicago thugs and run a dictatorship of imperial whim, but you can't do it without the bureaucracy, and you can't do it without this kind of immortal sort of staff of bureaucrats. And I am just astonished when I look at a guy like Robert Gates. I don't know why they just don't resign. I don't know why every single one of them doesn't just stand up and say, this is a catastrophe. What the president is doing is a catastrophe. And you'll say, well, generals should not criticize their civilian leaders. I agree with that. They should not. The general should not criticize the civilian leadership, which is why the general has to resign his commission. He needs to resign his commission and give up whatever benefits or whatever other reasons he decided to become a general in the first place. If you know this kind of stuff is going on, you need to resign your commission or resign your office or resign your secretary position, Secretary of Defense, or whatever other secretarial position. You need to resign, and then when you are no longer bound by your oath and no longer bound by the tradition of not criticizing the commander-in-chief because he's no longer your commander-in-chief, then you get out there and tell the American people what's going on. And I see so many, I can imagine so many military officers and so many highly placed government officials going along with something that they know is un-American, that they know is wrong, that they know is destructive, and they go along with it because they don't want to lose their jobs. And I see a lot of that out here in first person because I know how it works. I do. It's the exact same dynamic out here in Hollywood with conservative actors and people in show business. Sometimes I get really, really angry and irate at them for not standing up and being clear about their principles but I know that if they do, they won't work again. And it's this dilemma, right? They say, I just can't. I cannot do it. And not only will I never work again, I can't feed my family anymore. I just can't do it. And I understand that I do it. I'm sympathetic, and I know the pain it causes them. But at the same time, I also kind of want to say, well, if everybody didn't run and hide, if everybody who was a conservative in entertainment business stood up and said so, and then sued people when they could show that there was discrimination against them, the way the left has gotten into power, we wouldn't have this problem. But I'll put that aside because the stakes are lower. When you have generals or somebody like the Secretary of Defense knowing that American servicemen and women are dying because of policies that are unsound, and you keep quiet about it, you are complicit in their death. I don't know how else to put it. I understand that being commander-in-chief and making a decision to send our service people into harm's way is probably the toughest thing that any human being has to do. And I won't fault a commander-in-chief, not even this one. I will not fault them for making a decision to do that, even if I disagree with the decision. I don't have to agree with everything the president says, and if the president determines that this is the best course of action for the country and I don't like it, well, maybe I get a new president. But that's different. Going into Syria, for example, I think would have been a catastrophic mistake on the part of the Obama administration. Catastrophic. But if the president had made that decision and troops were under fire, then I would have held my fire. However, that's very, very different than putting troops under fire and knowing that either the strategy is not going to work, or we have the wrong tactics, or we have the wrong equipment, or we have look, I had major problems and stayed up nights and nights and nights because I wasn't shipping mugs and bumper stickers fast enough. How do people live with themselves knowing that they're prepared to send Americans servicemen in an M2 personnel carrier that wasn't fit for duty, that they had to put water in the fuel tanks for during the testing, so that it wouldn't explode on the spot? How do people go to sleep like that? How do American generals and colonels and majors and all these other guys follow orders that they know are going to get their own people killed, and that they know is just simply there's no answer here? The president doesn't think we're going to win. The president knows we're going to lose, and he's covering his own butt politically, and it's going to cost our soldiers their lives. How do we not have 400 people resigning and basically saying en masse, this is a catastrophe? And that'd be just as true under George Bush as it would be under anybody else. Air it out. If you had an actual press corps that was interested in telling the truth instead of protecting their own personal ideology, then that would be appropriate. We could have an argument about it. People harped an awful lot about Abu Ghraib, and I feel like I have a pretty good general grasp of what happened at Abu Ghraib. And I think what happened at Abu Ghraib was shameful and disgraceful and un-American, extremely damaging to us. And the fact that the New York Times ran Abu Ghraib on the front page every day for, 58 days consecutively or something, is overkill, and it's politically driven. Nevertheless, that is the kind of thing that needs to be investigated and punished. And we did. But they're not doing that now. They're not doing it. I would much rather have a press corps that is overly aggressive in terms of seeking out corruption and criminality and dishonorable practices and all that other stuff than what we have now, which is this, run a Republican into the ground, but if it's a Democrat, just let him go. So, yeah, I don't, there's no honor among these people. When I read about Boyd, one of my heroes, John Boyd, who fought the Pentagon for years, when I heard the inside story of that, and guys like Sperry and these other guys trying to do the things that Boyd was trying to do with the F-15 and the F-16, and Boyd and Sperry were trying to, Sperry and other guys were trying also to fix the M2 Bradley fighting vehicle and the A-10 Warthog, bring those weapon systems online. When you read again and again and again and again and again the political generals, because that's what they are, they're politicians. They're politicians in uniform. When you read political generals are fully aware that the programs that they have been attached to that have their names and their promotions on it, when they're fully aware that those vehicles are defective and they're prepared to send American soldiers to their death because of their own incompetence and their own unwillingness rather to accept responsibility for this defective equipment. I don't know what to call that other than treason. I don't know what to call it other than murder. If I'm the general running the M2 Bradley program, and I've produced the M2 Bradley, and we take the Bradley out into the field and we shoot at it, and bullets go into it, and all the spalling happens on the inside, and there's all the shrapnel firing around, and the armor's not what it's supposed to be, and the ventilation's not what it's supposed to be, and the engine's not what it's supposed to be, and we fill it full of gasoline or diesel fuel and it explodes, then my feeling is I need to resign. And if I don't tell the press, if the press doesn't find out about it, then I'll resign and I'll tell the press myself. Because if you knowingly send people out in that vehicle, you're a traitor and you're a murderer. You've sent American troops to die when they didn't have to. It's one thing to send, as I keep coming back to this again, it's like I will never blame the Pentagon or anything else. If they send divisions of guys out in M2s, and the M2 is the best vehicle they can make, and those entire divisions are wiped out, that's one kind of error. But if you know in advance that those vehicles are defective, that's treason. That's murder. And those people need to be held accountable. Doesn't happen. No one's held accountable for anything. It's the age of inaccountability. That's the age we live in today. Zachariah Tiemens, what's that last name? Tiemens, I guess. Let's see if I pronounce that correctly. Says, I had a thought earlier about how liberals talk about diversity as a virtue that they desire. Is liberalism not in direct opposition to true diversity, since the entire goal of liberalism is to eliminate the differences between individuals? Congratulations, Zachariah. That's precisely correct. When liberals talk about diversity, what they want is they want diversity of appearances. Liberals, genuinely honest to God, are skin-deep racists. And so they figure as long as they can find black people, yellow people, brown people, white people, and red people who all feel and think exactly the way they do, then that's diversity. If, on the other hand, we feel that individuality is what we prize, that everybody's different, that every single person is unique, that's genuine diversity to me. And as I've said before, if you have a female business person and a gay business person and a Mexican business person and a black business person, those four people have more in common as business owners than they do as gays or blacks or women's or Hispanics. They have much more in common as business owners. It's the essence of what our theory about people is that diversity is, we don't accept the entire idea of diversity. We reject the entire idea of diversity because we don't believe in race. We don't believe in tribes. We believe in individual people making individual decisions, and we don't care what they look like. And they constantly rail us. Oh, you're liars, you're just racist. It's like, folks, I would rather be surrounded. Now think about this. If I had to spend a year someplace, I would rather spend a year in the wilderness with a platoon of all black Marines than with an equal number of all white criminals. What's so hard to figure out about this? Is somebody going to say I'm lying about this? Somebody going to say you're not serious? I mean, honest to God, how hard is this to figure out? Who would you rather be with? Who would you rather spend time with? Who do you think would do a better job? Who do you think would be more pleasant to be with? Who do you think would be more worthy of sacrificing yourself for? Who do you think any of this stuff, if you had a platoon of black Marines, or forget criminals, an equivalent number of Berkeley professors who were white as the driven snow. I'd take the black Marines every single day of the year, every single time, all the time. I want to be with people whose values I admire, and the values I admire have nothing to do with their skin color, has nothing to do with their national origin, nothing to do with their religion, nothing. Nothing. And we could win every single argument on the face of the earth if we just got out there and said just that. I don't care what you look like. It's not important to us. We don't have black Americans for conservatisms or Filipinos for conservatisms or women for conservatism or gays for conservatism. We don't have those things because to have those things would be to negate the exact essence of what it is we believe. We have conservatives. And they can look like whatever they damn well want to. Now, the fact that most of them are white and male, that's people making choices. And the reason there aren't more black conservatives is because black leadership has convinced so many black people that they are in fact part of a tribe, and a tribe that is in desperate trouble, by the way, that they've convinced them. They've convinced them that we're liars. They've convinced them that we're racist, and so on and so forth. And you can unconvince them, but you have to talk to them one-on-one. You have to get them one-on-one and talk to them individually as people. And say, and you have this conversation. What is it you want? What are you looking for? What do you need? What are your goals? What do you want to do? And you start asking people these questions. They start to understand. I'm not asking you what you want as a black American. I'm asking you what you want as an American. What do you want as a person? What is it you want? What do you want to do with your life? Boom. Just that simple. So we reject this idea of skin color diversity because we don't see skin color. They can't believe it. They can't believe it. They can't believe it. They just can't believe it. But it's true. They can't believe it. And the reason they can't believe it is because if we're telling the truth about this, they have no case left. They have nothing. Their entire world is gone. Their politics is gone. Their theories are gone. Their entire worldview is over if what I just said is the truth. If what I just said is the truth, they're finished. They're finished politically. The only reason these people won this last election was they convinced black people that the Republicans wanted to put them back on the plantation, and they convinced women that we wanted to put them in binders. And I have to tell you, women and black Americans fell for this hook, line, and sinker. It was really pretty stupid. The unemployment rate among black Americans with this black president is unprecedented. It's never happened before. Ever have we seen these kind of numbers. But you know what? Ultimately, you have to blame who? You have to blame Mitt Romney, and you have to blame the RNC, but mostly you have to blame Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney never got out there and made this case. When Mitt Romney says 47% of the people getting benefits will never vote for me, he's right. That's not how you win elections. Mitt Romney should have gone out there with a speech to get the 47%. Get them. I agree. It's easier to hand out free candy than it is to get people to buy vegetables. I understand that. But if you're not even going to get people to try to buy vegetables, then you don't deserve to be the candidate of the vegetable party, right? If the Democrats are handing out free candy to people to the point where they're obese and they're getting diabetes, and we're saying on the contrary, yes, candy is nice, and yes, candy tastes great, and yes, it's free to the degree that you're not trading money for it, but it's slavery. Now you're enslaved to the guy who's handing you the candy. Come over here and pay for some vegetables, work hard in the field, pay for vegetables. Not only will you feel good about working hard, not only are the vegetables good for you, but you'll get to prosper and grow. Maybe you'll be a vegetable farmer and you can sell vegetables to other people and relax. If you are not prepared to make that speech, you don't deserve to be a national candidate. You don't deserve it. You don't deserve it. And as I've said before, you know, Mitt, I just don't think there was a better moral character than Mitt Romney since George Washington. But if Mitt Romney can't tell the Mitt Romney story, that doesn't make him a bad man, and that doesn't mean he wouldn't have been a good president. He might have been an extraordinarily good president if, as a manager, his job was to cut away things that aren't working, keep the stuff that is, and get these budgets under control. He may have been the perfect president for this day and age. But if Mitt Romney cannot tell the Mitt Romney story, then you are not a candidate. And it doesn't matter how good a president you would be if you cannot get to office. This is the thing we have to understand. It doesn't matter how good a man he is, and it doesn't matter what kind of a president he would have been if he can't tell his own life story, and if he can't say, you know what, you know, the president of the United States, this is so simple to me, this is so obvious, it's like a giant neon sign that walks in front of me, like it's attached to a stick in front of on the back of my neck, and wherever I go, I'm looking at the sign when I think about Republican politics on a national level. And what that sign basically says to me is we should have 100% of the vote. 100% of the vote. We should get every single vote in this country, every single one of them. And if we don't have a plan to get every single vote in this country, we're doing something wrong. That's how I look at politics. Oh, we can't win California. Why not? Oh, California's too liberal. Says who? Well, just look at the poll numbers. The poll numbers are the result of you idiots not being able to complete a sentence and not make a case for what it is we believe in. I think we could win California. Really? You think you get to 51%? No, I don't think we'll get to 51%. We'll get to 100%. We'll get to 100%. We're going to win 100% of California. That's how you have to look at these things. We are going to win 100% of California. Really? Yep. You're delusional. Am I? Am I delusional or am I crazy like a fox? Because I think we're going to win 100% of California. That's insane. Maybe the expectation of it is insane, but I will tell you this. I have a plan to win 100% of California. I have a plan. My campaign is built upon winning 100% of California. Really? Yep. Who is that general who just retired in Iraq? Awesome guy. Awesome guy. I should know his name. I'm ashamed I don't. But wasn't he the guy who said to his people, he was doing a briefing back when Iraq was really hot, and it's going to get hot again, 2004, 5, 6, somewhere in there, starting to run patrols. And he said, be polite, be professional, and have a plan to kill everybody you meet today. Yep. That would be my policy as a candidate running for the presidency. Be polite, be professional, and have a plan to win every single vote in the country today. Have a plan to win every single vote in California today. Everyone. Because if your goal is to win 100% of the vote and you fall short of your goal, you might win 80%, 60% of California, and then you win. And then you get to show people why you should have won 100%. But no, we have paths to 270. Oh, I'll give up California. 52 electoral votes? Gone? Yeah, and we're going to give it up. New York? No chance. Okay. They're fighting for Texas, They're turning Texas blue. Yeah, well, we have a pathway to 270. What does that look like? Oh, we have to win Rhode Island. We have to win either Iowa or Wisconsin. Pennsylvania have to definitely win. Ohio, we have to win. Florida's a coin toss, but we have to win Florida. This kind of nonsense is just utterly ridiculous. Somebody said to me as RNC, you know what I would do if I was the president of the RNC, chairman of the RNC, and I had actual power to enforce this? I would do two things. I would say, first of all, our policy is to win 100% of the vote. And we are going to have speeches. We're going to have policies. We're going to have a plan to win every single vote in this country. That's our first plank. We're going to win every single vote in the country, every one of them. We're going to be able to convince every single American to vote for us. And the second thing we're going to do as Republicans is we are going to say that if you are a member of the Republican Party, you will not stand for re-election, period, full stop. Done, period. No re-election. One term out, done. That would get people's attention, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that get people's attention if it wasn't just one individual? What if the entire party signed a pledge and the RNC chairman said you don't get any funds and you don't get to call yourself a Republican, you don't get anything unless you sign this pledge? What's the pledge? No re-election. What do you mean no re-election? What do you think I mean when I say no re-election? What thoughts come to your mind when I say no re-election? Think about that. Think about the power of that. Really? Yep. You're running for president? Yep. You're not going to take a second term. I will not accept a second term as president, even if I am what was it that Johnson said? It was actually kind of pithy. If nominated, no, it wasn't Johnson. It was Johnson. If nominated, I will not run. If elected, I will not serve. Well, everybody in the Republican Party takes that oath. Really? Yep. You're telling me you're going to send this person to Congress for 2 years and they're not going to go and do a second term? Nope. Why? Because our theory of government is the longer you stay in Washington, the more the corrupted you are by Washington, and we don't think that in a nation of 320 million people, we are going to have a shortfall finding 535 people who are qualified to make decisions. We don't think that given a 320 million person pool, we can't find 535 people every 2 years. And once they've been there for 2 years, that means that they are 2 years out of date in terms of everything that matters. In terms of everything that matters, you're already 2 years out of date if you go for your first possible reelection as a congressman. You're elected in 2012, you're running in 2014 for reelection, yep. So you've been out of the real world for 2 years already? Yep. And you want us to have you out of the real world for 4 years now? That's right. How far do you want to run with this? I don't know, 30, 40, 50 years maybe? I think, what's his name? Robert Byrd. Robert Byrd was a senator for 52 years. He was a senator longer than I'd been alive at the time he died. Nope, not us. We don't believe it. Really? No. You're really serious about this, you Republicans. We're as serious as we can be. We're serious as we can be. As a matter of fact, here's all of us on video. Here's every single national candidate on video, standing there together in a field out in Iowa, raising our right hands, swearing on a stack of Bibles. We will not seek re-election for this office. I don't mind that qualifier. That's fine. If you serve as a congressman and you do a great job, and as a representative rather, and the people think, man, that guy was absolutely fantastic. He was killer. Send him back as a senator. Okay, that's fine. That's a whole new campaign. There's no incumbency. That's fine. But generally speaking, I'm not even sure I really like that. No re-election to that office. Period. You're done. But that means you'll have amateurs. That's exactly what that means. That's exactly what that means. We will have amateur politicians, but professional businessmen and professional teachers and professional military officers and professional nurses, and we'll have professional doctors, and we'll have professional people in the construction trades. We'll have all of these people making decisions for all of us. They'll be professionals in what matters, and they'll be amateurs in the things that you guys think are important, because what you think is important is useless. I'm telling you, folks, honest to God, if I was the chairman of the RNC, we would win every election. We would win every election forever. And if you don't believe me, give me a try. Moving on. Janine Ron says, congratulations, it's 2016. Oh, it's kind of related, I guess. And your team has won the presidency and a majority of both houses. You don't have the Supreme Court, and you will never, ever, ever have the media. After the midterm elections, you might not even have that 2-house majority. So, what are you going to do to fix things in the 2 years you've got? Let me go to the one thing that sticks in that question like a thorn for me, and that is the never, never, never have the media part. I'm not talking about me personally. I'm saying this could apply to anybody. Apparently, by the way, somebody just said it was Sherman who said if nominated. It was William. It was William Tecumseh Sherman. He was so heavily recruited. Beg your pardon. It wasn't. I don't think it was LBJ. In any event, what would I do? Well, first of all, I don't buy this thing about you'll never, ever, ever have the media, because you don't understand the media. The media is not in love with Democrats, and the media is not even in love with liberalism or progressivism. Listen carefully, because it's very important. What the media really is in love with, what the press is really in love with, is they're in love with rhetorical intelligence. They're in love with cleverness. They're in love with image. They're in love with style. They're in love with wit. They're in love with elegance. Everything that the media is attracted to is something that raises them up. In other words, they're attracted to, I'm sitting here in a chair with the most powerful man in the world, also the handsomest, also the most glamorous, also the funniest, also the most sharply dressed. That's what they're interested in. They're not interested in necessarily in the politics. They tell themselves their stories about how they're doing good for the poor, even though they enslave them at their cocktail parties. But what they really, really, really want out of a politician, what the media wants out of a politician, is they want Kennedy. They want Kennedy. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them. I would watch Kennedy making self-deprecating remarks at a press conference, and you just fall in love with it. You fall in love with somebody who's so confident about themselves and about their intelligence, about their achievements, that they can laugh at themselves. They make jokes about themselves. That is confidence, and it's elegance, and it's style, and it's all the things that the media is madly in love with, because this is what they see reflected in themselves. They don't see reflected in themselves acorn They don't see acorn reflected in themselves. They don't want to bask in the glory of handing out forms. They want glamour. They want the glamour. They want to be seen. Katie Couric lives to be seen interviewing not just the president. This is the thing you have to understand. Not just the president. They don't want to be seen as interviewing George Bush, who they see to be much stupider than they are. They don't think George Bush can hold a candle to Katie Couric is convinced she's far smarter than George Bush. She'd be in for a rude surprise. What they want is they want to be in the company of somebody. They want to be in the company of movie stars. They want to be around George Clooney. They want to be around somebody who's handsome and clever and quick with a phrase and could drop a little French on something, or knows how to go up and say to somebody and greet somebody in perfect Japanese and nod. And the press just goes nuts over this. They just, oh my God, he's so smart, he's so worldly, so traveled, just like me. Reagan did it. Reagan had so much natural charm that even though Reagan was the antithesis of most media's politics, they couldn't resist his charm. And what came down to his charm, what Reagan's charm ultimately came down to, was the confidence to have fun with himself. I almost said the confidence to play with himself, and I'm going to go ahead and say that because despite the kind of snarky response to that, but that's really what it comes down to: the confidence to have fun with themselves, to play with their own image. The classic Reagan example, of course, is it was after the first debate in '84, I guess it was, where he was really, really, really off his game, and people would say he's too old and senile, and Reagan uncorks that line. It's like, I would just like to say on the question of age, I will not allow my opponent's youth and inexperience to become a factor in this campaign. Something almost virtually that. And the press, and even Mondale laughed, because it was so much what they want. They want rhetorical glory. They want rhetorical finesse. It's like watching a basketball game to them. People who can speak well, people who can turn a phrase, people who can get off a joke, people who can think on their feet, the press worship. They get down and worship them like a god, like a golden statue. I've seen it hundreds of times in hundreds of places from high to low. When a politician is able to come back with a snappy response that makes a reporter laugh, that reporter is in that person's pocket. I'm telling you, they are. And it's about vanity. It's about the media's own image of themselves. No longer as sort of the arbiters of truth, no longer as the messengers of objective truth. No longer they're no longer the dogged gumshoe cub reporter with a little press pass in his hat, digging around in the dark and breaking this. They're not about that anymore. They are the media today in 21st century America. The media is the palace guard of elitism. Now we're really getting to it. They're the palace guard of elitism. And what they want is they want that elitist vibe. And I'm telling you that a president who was a rock-solid conservative, who believed in the common people, and who despised elitism, as I do, I despise them. I despise elitists. A person who could make a reporter laugh at their own elitism, a person who could through self-deprecation make people laugh about their own backgrounds, that person will have the media, Janine. They will. They'll have them. They really will. So if it's 2016 and I've just won the presidency and a majority in both houses, I don't have the Supreme Court, and let's say I don't have the media, whatever. What do I have to do? Well, you have to put in the policies that you ran on, and you have to do it quickly. You have to do it within 100 days. And since you have to do it within 100 days, you can't do everything. You have to do the important things. So I would just go in there and build down the government. I would just, in my first 100 days, first of all, if it were really truly up to me, I would say everybody. I would say, as I took my oath of office, my inaugural speech would be, I will not accept a second term, period. Second terms of presidents are useless, worthless. Nothing ever happens in a second term that's any good. I won't inflict that on the American people. It would make me happy to know that there's somebody behind me, maybe my vice president choice or whatever, who can continue on the same tradition of philosophy, but I am going to do this in 4 years. So first of all, people know that you're not just doing this for the power. You're going to walk away from power. You're going to pull a Cincinnati and a Washington. You're going to walk away from power. Mr. President, even if your numbers are in the 80%, I will not seek or accept a second term. That's the first thing I would say, because then people would know I was serious about the business of the nation and not about the business of Bill Whittle. That's the first thing out of my mouth. I would decline publicly. I'd swear an oath on a Bible that I would not accept a second term. Because then you're saying this is not about me, it's not about my popularity, and it's not about my, what's the word I'm looking for? Legacy. It's about fixing these problems. Many of these problems are going to be tough to fix. We've let them go for 50 years. And in order to fix them, we're going to have to do unpleasant things. We're going to have to get a lot of haircuts all across this country. That's not going to be a popular position to take. So I'm telling you right now, I'm not worried about my popularity numbers. I'm not worried about what my numbers are going to be on Election Day. I don't care, because I'm not running again. I am doing what has to be done to save this republic. And here's what I think we need to do. We're going to abolish the Department of Education. We're going to abolish the Department of Energy. We're going to pass legislation within the first 100 days that says that we will reduce the number of regulations in this country by 25% per year for each one of the years that I'm president. Not a total of 100%, but 25%, and then 25% of that, 25% of that. And we're going to get down to the brass tacks of what regulations are important, because some of them are. We're going to do that. We're going to reduce taxes. We're going to put the people's money back in their own pockets, and we are going to ruthlessly eliminate any business subsidies at all, period. If people don't get subsidies, and we don't think they should, then businesses can't either. If you can't survive by selling things to the American people at a fair price voluntarily, then you don't deserve to be in business. You're not a good businessman. You're making businessmen look bad. If General Motors can't sell a car at a profit, then General Motors is just going to have to go away, and somebody will come along with Colonel Motors or Major Motors or some other smaller version of General Motors, and that company will sell cars that will sell for a profit, and then they'll be General Motors. And after 50 years of them being successful, they'll get big, fat, and fossilized too, and somebody else will come up and knock them off. That's how it's supposed to be. Closing General Motors does not mean that all of those factories are bulldozed over, and it doesn't mean all those people are taken out and shot. It just means that General Motors as an organization with legal contracts is done. Can you put a company in there that can make a profit? Yes or no? Because I can find people who can. But as president, I don't have to. It's not my job to find people who can. My job is to get out of the way. There are people out there who are much smarter than me, much, much, much smarter than me, and they are able to work with other smart people that they select, and they can do anything they want to. They can make solar cells that either make solar panels that either cost less than they're worth or they don't, but they're not getting any money from me to do it or from you at gunpoint. If they can make a profitable solar panel, then go for it. Because if they can save you money through their product, you will have to buy it. You'll buy it out of choice. I don't have to make you buy anything. EPA is going to go as we know it. We are going to maintain the Environmental Protection Agency as a means of protecting the environment, but not as a means of shutting down capitalism. We're going to make this country not only energy independent, we're going to be a net exporter of energy. Much of our horrific deficit that we have run up through incompetence and greed is going to be paid off by the ingenuity and hard work of our energy sector and the blessings of this amazing country. We're going to go out there and we're going to find oil and we're going to sell it. And we're going to sell it to the American people, and we're going to sell it to the world, and we're going to pay our debt down, and we can have the Saudis pay us trillions of dollars a year for however many years they want to so they can keep their gold-plated toilets or whatever they spent their money on over there. Boom, just like that. I would make sure that our military was lean but powerful and strong and had our full support, and I would steer very, very, very carefully away from gold-plated weapon systems and concentrate on what's working, what is effective, I would concentrate on readiness, I'd concentrate on training, I'd concentrate on supply, I'd concentrate on retention of key personnel, I would raise everybody's salary, and I would make sure that what we have works, because we got a lot of stuff. 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 key areas where technology was absolutely essential, things like missile defense, energy weapons, air superiority, drones, these kind of things, I put a lot of money into because that's the tip of the spear. Those are the things we have to have in order to stay dominant And I don't want parity with the Chinese. I don't want the word America, China, and parity ever to be spoken in the same sentence ever again, period, ever. I don't want anybody on this planet to think they can mess with us. And they wouldn't have to either. They wouldn't have to. I would have something that was so tight and so ready. And my personal attitude as president when I'm negotiating with people like Fidel Castro or any of these clowns. When I'm talking to the Iranians, and I don't think I'd ever talk to them directly, but if I'm in the same room with an Iranian leadership, or if I'm being asked questions by a press corps, I would want to project a quality that basically said, he seems like a reasonable guy, but just look in his eyes. This lunatic Bill Whittle president, this guy really wants to bomb the daylights out of these guys. That's the air I would project. I would basically say, we got these, 12, 14 carrier battle groups? That's a lot of firepower. We've never seen these things really go. We've never seen these things really in action. I'm kind of curious to know what it would look like to see 7,000 cruise missiles just appear suddenly out of the water. I think that'd be a cool thing to see on TV. That's what I would project to foreign leaders. I would project the sense of, this guy really thinks. He really thinks that his people can do this. Oh, you're damn right our people can do it. I don't have to think that. I know they can do it. Give us a chance. Come on, give us a chance. Come on, we put all this money into all these weapons. Let's see if they work. I know they work. Don't mess with us, because we will do it. I'm not talking about blow up the world. I'm just saying, parity? No. Nope. Somebody just pointed out Winston Smith, a great screen name, said that was British policy. And Britain would spend whatever it took. For 100 years they did this. It was British naval policy that the Royal Navy will be able to defeat the combined fleets of the second and third most powerful fleets in the world. And the Royal Navy, for 100 years, the British Empire spent whatever it took to make sure that the Royal Navy could handily defeat an alliance of the second and third most powerful navies in Europe. That is a sound of a civilization that's serious about its survival and serious about its perpetuation. And I would reinstall that. Man, I would just be like, boy, you have no idea. You have no idea how much we're waiting. I know the liberal media back home, and I know that my predecessors and all the progressives here in America have given you the idea that our armed forces just consists of kind of like the bottom dwellers of our society, all those poor disadvantaged idiots who didn't have a chance to succeed in business, and basically that the Army or the Navy or the Air Force, Marines or Coast Guard, it's kind of a dole for the stupid people. But let me tell you something, man. I've stood on the deck of a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, and I've seen F-18 Hornets take off into typhoons. And these people want to fight. They want to fight. They want to fight. They're not running from a fight. They're not waiting to go home. They want the fight. That's what they want. They want to fight. Don't piss me off, because if you do, I'm going to let these people loose on you, and you will not like the consequences of that. If I let these naval commanders loose on you, if I let these Air Force majors and colonels loose, I'm not talking about the generals. I'm talking about the guys who are sitting in the cockpit. There are second lieutenants and majors and colonels who are dying to get up in the air right now, right this second, and pickle off 14 AMRAAMs at your incoming fleet and turn around before you even see us on your radar. They're just dying to do it. Don't piss us off. I'm telling you, man, we would have this country back on a rail, and everybody would be able to participate. And the one thing we would have to do domestically through the Department of Justice is we would have to make sure that the playing field is as level as human effort can make it. That means no one is locked out. No one. No one is locked out because they're a minority. No one's locked out because they're white. No one's locked out because they're rich. No one's locked out because they're poor. It is my Department of Justice would live to make sure that institutional barriers to opportunity do not exist. Period. And if I had a government that got out of the way of business, there's so much coiled prosperity, there's so much capital, there's so much money, there's so much effort ready to go, there's so much work ready to be done if we just got out of their way, if we just pulled the stakes off of our own selves like Gulliver and just sat up on the beach. It just would blow people's minds. It would blow their minds. I would develop nuclear energy like there's no tomorrow. I would put so many power plants in this country. I'd have people in Arizona. I'd have them growing rice in the desert. I would. I'd have. What are you doing? We have a plan to grow rice in the desert. Well, first of all, you don't need my approval because I'm the president of the United States. I'm not the emperor. So, just out of curiosity, what's your plan? Our plan is we're going to set up a series of nuclear reactors, and we're going to have a series of aqueducts and pumps, and we're going to pump seawater in from the Gulf of Mexico or wherever, and we're going to run a 450-mile-long pipeline to the Pacific Ocean, and we're going to pump in a whole mess of water, and we're going to use nuclear power to pump it in, and we're going to use nuclear power to do the desalination, and we're going to grow rice in the desert. That sounds fascinating. Good luck with your venture. I'd love to see it succeed. You're not getting a federal penny to help you, but if you can convince other businessmen that this thing is sound, then my God, it would make my day to come down to Tucson and go out there with you in the rice paddies and pick a little rice just as a means of showing people what you could do. That's what I would do. I'd get out of their way. I'd just get out of their way. I'd get out of their way. I would make the kind of regulations I would enforce are things like airline maintenance regulations. I am not a Randian in the sense that says, oh, no, every business owner will, of course, pay full money to comply fully with safety regulations. We know that's not true. It's just the world doesn't work like that. I would enforce airline maintenance regulations, but I would not have a single regulation preventing somebody from getting in the airline business. If they met the safety regulations, if the training regulations were there, those kind of regulations are important and good. It's important and good that you have to pass an ATP, an airline transport pilot rating, in order to fly large numbers of passengers, because I've seen the training that these guys get, and they're worth every penny of it. And there are airlines and there are people out there who could save money by hiring private pilots, and that would pay downstream. People would pay for that. So I would have very simple, very easy to understand regulations that were very simple, and I'd get the hell out of the way. And we'd never lose another election. I'd watch it all from the sidelines, because 4 years later, after everything was humming and everybody was making money and everybody's getting rich, and we're slowly starting to bring people back off the dole and back out into the world, and they can understand what a paycheck means, and getting out of the tenements and getting into their own apartment complex with their own televisions, their own iPhones, I'd let 4 years of that go by, and then I would say, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a great honor and a great pleasure serving this amazing nation that has given me so many opportunities. I am now returning to my home in California, which is once again the freest and least regulated state in the union, due to the outstanding work done by Governor Clavin, and I am going to retire to a nice coastal house, which I've worked very hard for in private money prior to taking this job. And I'm going to watch this magnificent country take off like a rocket. Thank you very much for your time, and God bless you all. Boom. That's what I would do. Patty Ann says, do the Tiemens brothers lie awake at night dreaming up questions for the Stratosphere Lounge? If this is your first Stratosphere Lounge or haven't been back recently, you know that ever since we changed the format, I used to pick the questions for the first, 20 or 30 or something. But when we started rating questions in terms of most popular, the Tiemens brothers have consistently been in they get 5, 6, 7 questions a show, because they're such good questions. And so the question is, do they lie awake at night dreaming up questions for the Stratosphere Lounge? But Patty, I think probably at this point, I don't suppose there's any more denying it. The Tiemens brothers are not actually brothers. In fact, they're not individuals in the sense that you and I understand the term. They're extremely complex biomechanical replicants. And basically, I've got them. If you remember, do you remember Lost in Space? It was one of my favorite shows, a real formative show for me. But on board the Jupiter 2, there were these plastic tubes across the background where each person was kept in cryogenic suspension. And we actually have several Tiemens here. We have like, I think it was 4 rows of 40s, 4, 5, 6, so it'd be 20, I guess. So I guess we got 20 more or less on the ground now, and I activate them as I need them. I have my little Tiemens activator here, and so for instance, right now I've activated Joshua, Zachariah, and who's the other one? I've forgotten. They all look the same to me basically. But if I wanted to have more shows up, I'd basically just activate I'd activate like number 4 thing. And if Zachariah gets a little out of control, if he's getting too many questions, if he's getting too many upticks, I'll just, I can just kind of, I can take him down a couple notches. We're still in the kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? We're kind of in a teething phase. We're still kind of trying to get the balance just about right. But I do know for a certain fact that one of my shortcomings has been I have not vaporized enough of the Tiemens brothers. So I'm going to just basically change the settings on this after the show, and we'll vaporize 2 or 3 of them and bring out a couple of new models and a couple of new sets and see if we can get a little more balance here to what we've been doing before. But thanks for the question. They finally found us out. I feel bad about that cracked tube back there. Look at that thing. It's aging right before my eyes. It's like that Planet of the Apes first Planet of the Apes movie where there's that crack in the hibernation. Look at that Tiemens thing. It's just dissolving right in front of me. It's like the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark over there. It's hideous. And it smells awful too. Charles Tomes asks, who is the Buckaroo Banzai in our time and what influence does he have on politics? I guess I am. One of the reasons I love Buckaroo Banzai, I can't get too deep into this question because I am going to tell you more about Big Bat Problems, but the bottom line about Big Bat Problems, I didn't realize this until after I'd written it in my head. What I'd written in my head was this idea that I love the idea of really brilliant, eccentric, weird people who are on a mission. I love it. The thing I love most about Buckaroo Banzai, the movie, is not just Buckaroo Banzai. The thing I loved about the Buckaroo Banzai movie was the Hong Kong Cavaliers. I loved it. I couldn't get enough of it. The idea that here's the smartest guy in the world. For those of you who haven't seen Buckaroo Banzai and his adventures across the 8th dimension, can't recommend it highly enough. But Buckaroo Banzai is a brain surgeon, and he's also a nuclear physicist, and he's also a test car racer, and he's also a rock and roll musician. So in the morning, he does some brain surgery, jets out to the Mojave Desert, gets into his truck, puts in the oscillation overthrusser, fires that baby up, dissolves the dimensional walls that hold atoms together in the side of a mountain, drives his truck through a mountain, through the intervening space in a mountain, I suppose I should say, encounters electroids from Planet 10, gets out on the other side, and to celebrate, he takes his scientists and his test pilots and his brain surgeons out to a nightclub where every single one of them is dressed to the height of fashions for 1984 and are extraordinarily good rock and roll musicians and armed to the teeth. I don't know how you beat that, really. I don't know how you beat that. But Big Bat Problems has that quality. It's a collection of really unusual people who are literally in a convoy. And the leader of them is a woman named Grace. And she's got a chip on her shoulder about these creatures. And she travels in a giant tour bus and never really leaves her massage chair because she's got a lot of arthritis issues from chopping up so many bats. And there's a former NSA guy who's doing electronic countermeasures. There's a guy who was a badly wounded ranger who's doing operational surveillance. There's a mariachi band. There's a former Navy pilot in the front seat and a former Army door gunner in the back seat of their own little airplane. So they have their own Air Force. They have their own air cover. They're flying up ahead looking for speed traps. They're looking for landing sites. They're looking for places to camp. They've got, they're pursued by drones. They got their own Air Force, basically. There's a guy who's towing a trailer full of horses, and he's big into historical reenactments, and he likes to dress up as a member of the Scots Greys and wield a saber and have a big bearskin hat and hacks at these bats with a saber. And there's a guy named Reverend Rocket who wears a black leather cowboy hat and has twin Navy revolvers and a Bible from the Civil War, which he uses when he assaults one of these positions. And there's this girl who's 16 years old and covered in tattoos. She never says a word. She's nothing but attitude, and she's kind of the secret weapon. She's the one they hold on to for the boss bad. And it's just interesting, right? I mean, it's just interesting interesting. To me, anyway, it's interesting. Every one of these people is whack. Every one of them is just absolutely out of their minds crazy. But they're all armed to the teeth, and they're all, it's kind of the diversity thing, right? You got people who look very different, but they're all conservatives because they're armed, because they're not waiting for somebody else to do it. They've all run into these horrible things, and all of them have kind of lost a screw, and they're just roaming the Southwest, hunting these things down and trying to clean out the nests of these things, and the government wants to stop them because the government has a vested interest in these big bats being around. And they're not bats, and they're not of this earth. Yeah. Dave Olson says, so what? Big deal. Do yourself a favor and go to YouTube and look at Buckaroo Banzia closing credits, good version. By the way, I know I've said this before. The closing credits in Buckaroo Banzia are the best closing credits in the history of the world. They've got a great little electronic tune. They're just the coolest credits in the end of the world. They tried to reproduce something much like them in The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. Wasn't nearly as good, though. And here's what's really fascinating to me. Honest to God, I'm not making this up. My apartment, the one I just got that I'm so happy with, is the nicest place I've ever lived in by a wide margin. I'm very grateful for you fine people out there for allowing me to have this apartment. My apartment overlooks the 405 freeway, and on the far side of the 405 freeway, I see very clearly, I mean, it's right out in front of me, I see the stone, the poured concrete structures and the sloping stone wall where the end credits of Buckaroo Banzia were shot. It's less than a mile out my balcony. I see the end credits of Buckaroo Banzia every single day of my life. Every day I go out there, take a look, and there it is. It's the coolest thing about that apartment. Every time I take off out of Van Nuys, if you make a departure out of Van Nuys, runway 16, usually 16 right, but if you're a small little airplane, it might be 16 left. But if you take off out of runway 16 out of Van Nuys, and as you get over the flood basin, you look down and to the left, and that is where they shot the end credits to Buckaroo Banzia. And it's just really cool. So needless to say, big bet problems. We're going to reproduce the end credits of Buckaroo Banzia to the frame. To the frame. Yep, to the frame. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. On frame 173, Buckaroo's tossing a rope away, and on a frame 173, Grace is tossing a rope away, and we're just going to do it. That's fun. It's going to be really, really cool, too. It's really just going to be cool, and I'm looking forward to being able to tell you about it. I got to get the rest of this stuff done. I have to get some content out the door, but then I'll get it copyrighted, and I can tell you all about it. Charles Staley says, Bill, I'd love to know your personal feelings about God and religion. And Charles, I took the question because I didn't want to be seen to be avoiding the question. But the fact is, I've talked about that several times, and I don't, especially at this hour, I just don't feel like I need to go into it again. I don't remember what episode it was in. I'm not afraid to deal with it. I'll take it again, but I don't want to take it tonight. And I didn't want to. I don't just want to skip over it because that looked cowardly to me. So I've talked about this quite a lot, and I'll talk about it again if I can think of a new angle on it. And maybe we'll do a metaphysical show. But again, I hope that answer satisfies you. And the short form is I spent most of my middle years being pretty aggressively materialistic and atheistic. Pretty sure that my little Australopithecus brain had this whole thing figured out. And then as you start getting into dimensional theory and quantum and all the rest of it, you begin to realize that this ball of wax is a lot more complicated than we think it is. And we really are seeing the world through a cocktail straw. And I began to realize that there were enormous, infinitely huge what's the word I'm looking for? I want to say realities. That's kind of hackneyed. The borders of what I thought were the limitations of reality as I perceived it were right at my fingertips. The real stuff goes to the infinite horizon, and it really opened my eyes a lot about arrogance and a lot about a lot about a lot of things. When you find out that a particle changes its from a wave to a particle based on whether or not a camera is present, that's a pretty profound thing. You find out that certain particles are tethered together across space and time, and if you change one, the other one changes automatically. That's remarkable. You find out that observing something changes the outcome. Then you start asking yourself, well, what if you had a powerful enough observer who was observing at enough levels? And there's math behind this stuff. There's math. So anyway, I'm happy to get into it again, but not tonight, so I'm sorry about that. 2 to go. Jet Atwood says, as virtual president of the U.S. and having an understanding of Starfish versus Spider organizations, how would you conduct the war on terror, since Al-Qaeda et al. Are Starfish and the U.S. military is very much a top-down Spider organization? There is a remarkable book that deeply influenced the Common Sense Resistance, and that is a book called The Starfish and the Spider. And basically what it says is if you take a spider and you cut its head off, the spider dies. But if you take a starfish and you cut a leg off because it has no head, then not only does the starfish grow a new leg, but the leg grows a new starfish. And the idea is that the more organized, hierarchical, vertical an organization is, the easier it is to disrupt. One of the examples used in the book was when the conquistadors came to the New World and they encountered the Inca. The Inca had an extremely sophisticated society that was very top-down, very hierarchical. Everything was run out of the capital and run out of the emperor. And once you killed the emperor, the whole thing fell apart. But the Apaches, on the other hand, had no cities. The Apaches essentially had no villages. The Apaches were largely nomadic. There was no Apache chief. There was no capital to march on. There was no emperor to capture. There was nothing. There were just scores, if not hundreds, of individual bands of Apache who would gather together for a common good. And if you took one of these bands out, then you simply took out 1% of the total Apache organization, and new Apaches came in to fill the hole. And that is how I envision the Common Sense Resistance. It's a series of nodes scattered around a network. They're completely independent. There's no hierarchy. There's no leadership. There's no orders. There's no command. There's no nothing. It's just a series of nodes. Each node has a specific function. That is, it's voluntarily its specific function. There's a transportation wrench, or a security wrench, or a funding wrench, or a philosophical wrench, or an aviation wrench, or whatever. And all of these nodes exist. And you can belong to more than one node. If you're a pilot, you can belong to an aviation wrench, and you can also belong to a construction wrench, and if you know a lot about milking cows, you can belong to a dairy wrench. And so what we've already begun to see happen with the internet is these expert systems come together and produce results without being commanded. They simply, each node has a skill set, and it's attracted to a problem. We saw this with, I've used this example before, it's such a good example, in the 2004 election when CBS News ran with this false story about Bush being AWOL from the Texas Air National Guard. And CBS News apparently had a memo from a guy who said he was AWOL or wanted to be AWOL, and they ran the memo, and they ran a segment on the memo 3 weeks before the election, and they put the memo online, and that was their mistake, because the whatever it was, the 367th Tang Texas Air National Guard, whatever the wing was, had a TH, and when they looked at the document that was weathered and looked like it had come from 1968 or whatever it was, somebody, like very quickly, a guy named Buckhead, a commenter over at Free Republic, said, well, isn't that interesting? This is supposed to come from 1968, but the little TH has been raised and made small the way is often done in word processors. Because now if you type in TH, it will automatically go to the little fourth. But back in the days of typewriters, those of us who use typewriters remember you just had to type in 4TH, and they were full-size letters. So somebody started saying, how come this document that was supposedly written in 1968 has the small little THs? And then Charles Johnson, who eventually went mad and completely changed teams, but at the time was a really respected member of the good guy team, basically took the document, typed it into Microsoft Word, I think it was like Word 98 or something like that, or Word 2000, typed the memo into Word. He didn't change any of the default settings. He didn't play with the margins. He just typed it in and printed it out using a Courier font. And he overlaid this thing that he just printed out over the supposedly authentic document from the mid 60s, late 60s, and it was a 1-to-1 correspondence, and he did an animated GIF showing here's the old one and the new one, and they're right on top of each other. It's the same document. It's obviously a forgery. What's interesting about that is no one told Buckhead to make that comment, to point it out. No one told Charles Johnson to make that animated GIF. And when CBS and Dan Rather started retreating, and their response was hilarious on its face, but this moment I'll never forget. They were basically saying, well, no, it absolutely could have happened, because as it turns out, IBM made a typewriter that could do the shrinking of the TH up there. Really? Yep. What kind of typewriter was it? It was a $7,000 typesetting typewriter that was used specifically for graphic designers and specifically to output print materials. Why would the Texas Air National Guard back room of a minor official in the Texas Air National Guard in a Quonset hut someplace in Lubbock or something have one of these $7,000 typesetting machines? Doesn't really stand to make much sense, does it? And then one of the defenders of the story said, well, you could do this with the IBM Selectric too. And I remember the exact details. I'm probably getting the details wrong, but what I do remember very, very, very clearly was this. Somebody said, well, the IBM Selectric can do that too. And somebody in the comment section at Little Green Football said, no, it can't. And the person said, yes, it can. I said, no, it can't. He says, well, how do you know it can't? And the guy said, because I was the engineer on the IBM Selectric 2. I'm the guy who designed the IBM Selectric 2. And I'll never forget that moment as long as I live. I thought, okay, here is an expert system that's just assembled itself. It's just, there was a news story. No, the CBS and Rather accused the Bush White House and absolutely believed that the White House was sending out transmissions like, we need to get the head of the IBM Selectric, like they were trying to coordinate the defense. It had nothing to do with the defense. The defense assembled itself. And so this whole team of people who were experts in printing and documents and authenticity and provenance and all these other things came in, pronounced this thing, devastatingly pronounced it a fake. It ruined Dan Rather. It cost 60 Minutes a lot of credibility, and Bush won the election. And when it was done, that group of experts just dissolved back into the internet. Nobody will see those same people again. You'll see some of them, but not the same people. There was a really moving moment I had once. You know, when you work as a freelancer, before I took this job, I was working as an editor in Hollywood for years. I was just the tail end of the guy, and I was editing specials for Discovery and History Channel, and I did 4 or 5 years of a movie talk show called Sunday Morning Shootout on AMC. But I'd worked a lot of gigs, basically. And of all the gigs I worked, there was a show I did called Is.com, and we did, I think, 4 or 5 episodes of that, right around 2000, right around the change, end of 1999, the beginning of the year 2000. And that was without question, the best show I've ever worked on. I had a lot of friends on the show, and the people who weren't my friends going in got to be good friends by the time I got out. It was a real loose, young show. Everybody was having fun. Everybody was hip. Everybody was on the same page. Everybody was cool. Everybody was on the same page. We all wanted to do the same stuff and had a lot of fun. And we did some great television, and we were very proud of it, and we loved working together, and we loved coming into work. And then finally the thing got canceled, and there was a cast party, as there always is, or usually is on these shows. And everybody was feeling down, and everybody was feeling sad. We knew, the show was over. And the producer of the show came out and said something, a really profound insight. Still sad, but it was a profound insight. And what he basically said was, hey guys, don't feel bad. Don't feel sad. We're all going to work with each other again, just never all of us at the same time in the same place. I thought that's exactly right. That's exactly it. I'll work with these people again and those people again. I'll work with these people again, but it'll never be this exact crew. And you often get that in theater. And so that's what the top-down thing. So anyway, to actually answer your question in terms of how it affects Al-Qaeda, I personally think that in addition to trying to take down Al-Qaeda, one of the things I would do as the virtual president, if I was the real president, I would forget about Al-Qaeda for a minute. I would authorize the best people we had. I would look for the renegades in our special forces. And if I was the president of the United States, I would issue a directive to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So consider this a direct order from the commander-in-chief. I want full-time teams of opposition red forces attacking everything we have. I want an army of our best people looking for our weaknesses. I want every single military base. I want our special forces to figure out how to get in there. I want special naval units to figure out how to sink aircraft carriers. I want guys who specialize in computers and EMP. I want people to think outside the box. I want every single facility that this country has to be perpetually under attack by loyal elements of opposition forces, by red flag team, by guys who are on our team trying to find our weaknesses, and I would have them operating 24/7. 24/7. And I don't want to hear anything about how, oh, that wasn't fair, or gee, well, we weren't ready, or well, that's not traditional or standard nonsense. If they in a simulation sank your aircraft carrier, you better tell me why I should keep this captain, and at the very least, you better tell me that he's learned his lesson and we're not going to allow this particular attack to happen again. I would have these red flag operations in effect all the time, because not only does it sharpen your defenses, it also sharpens your spear, right? The guys who are the best guys in the world are now presumably going up against the best guys in the world, which are our guys, and I'd have them constantly looking for absolutely out-of-the-box, unconventional ways to destroy our military. I would have the best special forces guys we have doing it 24/7. The best instructor pilots we have are the ones we have out at Red Flag and used to have at Top Gun. We should have our very best pilots, the best fighter pilots we have in the Navy and the Air Force and the Marine Corps. Those people should be back home training our pilots, should be shooting down our young pilots on a daily basis. We should have our majors and our colonels, the best fighter pilots, the best tacticians we have, shooting down second lieutenants and majors and first lieutenants, shooting them down and embarrassing them. I want them to make them cry. Because if you do that, then you train to such a level that actual combat's a piece of cake compared to that. What commercial pilots have to train for, the emergencies that you have to get your certification, in terms of, you'll be in a 757 simulator and they'll fail an engine at the exact worst moment of your takeoff, and then they'll give you hydraulic failure, and then they'll give you a navigation failure, and then they'll give you electrical failure, and then they'll give you false instructions on air traffic control, and they will just run you. They will run you so ragged in the training that nothing that happens in the real world will be that tough, actually. So I would have them do that, but that's not really your question, Jet. As far as Al-Qaeda is concerned, I would do a variation. I saw this question just shortly before the show, but I would do a variation of this. My understanding is that Carlos the Jackal, famous terrorist in the 70s, and they made a bunch of movies about him, that Carlos the Jackal had an extremely tight operational security, extremely tight. Nobody knew who he looked like. Nobody knew where he was. He didn't have a lot of direct contacts with people. He ran an extremely tight terrorist organization. And you know how we beat him? I think this is genius. I think this is the most incredibly brilliant thing I have ever heard in my life. Apparently, and I'm not going to say I'm not going to screw the story up, but my understanding was it was something to the effect of this. We would try to get operatives into his organization. They'd either be turned away or they would be killed. So you couldn't penetrate the organization. So do you know what the intelligence services did? It might have been the Israelis. It wouldn't surprise me. It's brilliant enough that it could have been the Israelis. But here's what they would do. They would take a known lieutenant of Carlos the Jackal, a man who couldn't be turned under any circumstances. This guy was a true believer and was deep inside the system. You could never turn him in a million years. And so what they would do is, when this guy'd be walking back or just walking through the streets of Marrakesh or wherever the hell he was, what they would do is they would have police officers and agents walk up to the guy or have a car pull up to him, and they'd start talking to him. And he'd look at them and like, what are you talking about? I just wanted to have a little chat. Have a chat with me, blah, blah, blah. And they would do this often enough and carefully enough so that word would get back to Carlos that this trusted lieutenant was having regular meetings with, let's say, the Mossad. And Carlos executed the guy. And every time that new person would come in, or every time they'd identify somebody, they would do something that was just, if you were looking for it, because he was a full-on paranoid. You don't get to have that kind of operational security unless you're genuinely paranoid. There's a lot to be paranoid about if you're a leading terrorist. So every time we didn't have to turn his people. We destroyed the organization. We destroyed that organization by making the top leadership of the organization destroy their own organization because they didn't trust the people. Because even though we hadn't turned those people, we behaved as if we had. We would do fake drops. We would have people who were known to be Western intelligence agents kind of bump into them or bump into their associates, and they're constantly looking for infiltrations. They say, this guy doesn't look right. There's something. And he executed, I don't know how many people, but he executed a lot of his own people. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. And I would work something like that really, really, really hard. I would be constantly working on them using their own methods against them. I would use this Sun Tzu idea of swordlessness, where you walk into the enemy camp without a sword and you use their sword against them. You walk into their tent, you take their sword, and you kill them with their sword. And that's how I would do it. So I would look at the organization, and rather than trying to crack it from without, I would analyze the Al-Qaeda network as it exists today, and I would say, rather than viewing us as a pathogen that's trying to get inside their immune system and poison them and kill them, what can we do to give them the impression that we've done that so that their own internal immune system destroys itself? How can we turn their own security forces against them? How can we turn their own mechanisms to defend Al-Qaeda into the mechanisms that will destroy Al-Qaeda? What do we have to do to make them think that every single one of their agents has been turned? How do we do that? That's how I would go at it. And I would have our people. I'd have our people working in terms of the Starfish and the spider thing. I think I would also make sure that I'd have to find some kind of safeguards to make sure that none of our own guys got shot by our own guys. I don't want any blue-on-blue casualties here. But I would also make sure that we had completely independent teams working the same cases differently from different angles, so that and they can't know about each other, because once they know about each other, you can't pretend like you don't. I'd have 4 or 5 guys or 4 or 5 teams working on a particular city or something, and I'd make sure that our guys had some kind of safeguard so that they weren't actually shooting our own guys. But beyond that, I wouldn't tell them how many of our other guys are out there, and I wouldn't be telling them what they're doing. I'd have them coming in from all different kinds of areas, and because they don't know what our own side is doing, sometimes you'd see duplicated efforts. Sometimes you see completely different effort. The timing would be weird. It would be unbeatable. It would be the kind of thing they couldn't counter, because there's no commanding intelligence on our end. In other words, rather than having one plan to crack Al-Qaeda, or just let's say the Al-Qaeda installation in Benghazi, I'll just say Al-Qaeda in Benghazi, rather than having a master plan that came from the Pentagon, here's how we're going to defeat the Al-Qaeda organization in Benghazi, I'd put 5 teams completely separate on how to beat Al-Qaeda in Benghazi, and I'd let them run their own course, and I'd give them all the resources that they need, and I would have some means of making sure that we're not about to maybe there'd be one supervisory guy who had no command ability at all. All he did was monitor things and make sure that we're not going to put Team A is not going to put a Hellfire missile down on top of a car that's got a member of Team B in it. But other than that, I would just go at it. I would have the special forces operatives, the guys who are absolutely on the streets. I'd have the agents and the shooters telling me what they think we should do. I wouldn't tell them what to do. I'd let the guys who are out there dictate tactics. And to the degree that the tactics were coherent, I'd use those tactics to build a strategy. Final question for the night. Joshua Tiemens says, could the newest millennial generation, the ones who are still in high school, turn out to be a conservative-leaning group? Yes, I've been bashing these poor millennials because there have been so many questions that seem to be, problems with millennial, values just as a cohort. But somebody just, I hate to go back, but somebody just, because there's a bit of lag in the comment section, just back to the previous question, somebody said I'd give them virgins or something. I'll tell you what I would give them. I'd give them pornography. I'd expose them to pornography. Because the one thing I learned from 9/11 was that Muhammad Atta, who was the ringleader of the entire operation, and who was the true believer, right? The true believer. Atta actually went to Vegas and went to nightclubs and got lap dances and drank alcohol. He knew he was going to destroy the West. He wasn't in any danger of turning, but he wanted to experience what he was about to destroy, because frankly, so much of this Islamic hatred of America is the hatred of a dorky, ugly kid who the prom queen doesn't smile at, right? They're forbidden by their religion to have fun. I pretty much could just say fun, but they're forbidden to dance. There's no music, there's no dancing, there's no kissing, there's no holding your hands, there's certainly no sex, the women are all intense and all this other stuff. Intense, not intense, intense, and burqas and hijabs and all the rest. And so Ada had even their truest believer couldn't resist it. And I think I would dangle that. I would dangle naked, blonde 18-year-olds in front of them. These Western women who are just nothing but sex appeal and stunningly gorgeous. It's irresistible to them. I think you drive them a little bit nuts. That's a powerful weapon to use against the street operatives of these, who are these horribly repressed and very, 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 very frustrated, usually young men who are really doing this because they honestly have been convinced that if they blow themselves up, they're going to get their virgins up in heaven. We just dangle some Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders in front of them here and see if that gets their attention. I bet it would. I bet it'd mess them up. It may not deter them, but it would mess them up, and messing them up I'm all about. So anyway, back to the millennials just real quick here. That's a Joshua Tiemens question. Damn you, Tiemens. Are millennials conservatives? They've certainly been trained not to be, but they've been trained not to be by their older brothers and their parents, and mostly their older brothers. And so you have a natural inclination to not want to do what the people 10 or 15 or 20 years ahead of you did. So there's a natural rebellion against Obama. I know for a certain fact that if everybody who was 5 or 10 years older than me thought Obama was cool, I would hate him just because they liked him. So there's that. But ultimately, the one thing I think you can say is, with a lot of confidence, is that they don't like being told what to do. Nobody likes being told what to do. And I think you can probably make the case that that if you sold it to them as, look, we just kind of want to be left alone, and you probably want to be left alone too, right? Our whole theory is about being left alone. We're not going to tell you how big a Coke you can drink, and we're not going to tell you, what the inclination on your skateboard ramp can be, and we're just not those people. We just basically want to leave you alone. I think you could probably do it. I really do. I think you could probably get it to them that way. I do think millennials want to be left alone, and they're an extremely virtuous people. They really do care about other people. They're very, very concerned about outcomes. And I think the main thing, if I was going to work on the millennials, is I would disconnect. I would show them the disconnect between. I'd show them the disconnect between what they want and what they get. In other words, they like all these liberal policies because it makes them feel good about helping people, and they want to help people, and that's fine. But I'd show them what they're doing doesn't work, and I'd make the case for them, if you really want to help poor people, you should go out and become a top-level corporate attorney. What? Yeah, if you go out and become a top-level corporate attorney, you make $500,000 a year. You're going to be paying $200,000 a year in taxes, minimum. It's $200,000 a year that goes into the pot. That's not, you're not handing out forms. You're putting money in the bank for the people that hand out forms. And I'd go at them that way. And I would just see, this is the whole purpose of the common sense resistance. We were talking about a structure of the common sense resistance. We were talking about these leaderless organizations and expert systems that assemble themselves. And there is no central authority, and there is no central mailing list, and there is no command to help the flooding in southeastern Missouri, because the people in southeastern Missouri have gotten on the network and they've contacted other people on the network, and it just does itself. But I think with the other thing about the common sense resistance is it's not the Republican resistance, it's not the conservative resistance. Those names have been horribly branded. They have horrible negatives. You may not say it's not fair. It's not fair. It just is. So we don't use those terms ever. We don't use liberal, conservative, Democrat, or Republican. We say, does it work? Yes. If we're in favor of it, if it works, we're in favor of it. If it doesn't, we're not. And that's actually my personal philosophy. If it works, I'm in favor of it. If it doesn't, then I'm not. Now, 9 out of 10 times, those are going to be conservative answers, because the reason they're conservative answers, the reason they work, is because they work over time. And that's what we believe in, that things that work over time should go. There are some new ideas that I might find a little repugnant in the beginning. If they actually do more good, I'll change my mind. But usually they don't. And then, we'll look around the margins. But I think if you can just get the names and the labels out of the picture, you will do much, 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 much better with these kids than you would otherwise. And I think that's the goal of what we're trying to do with the fist with a wrench and all that other stuff. And there's another 2.5-hour epic Stratosphere Lounge. Absolutely, I think one of the best ever. I really love these questions. I really had a great time tonight. And what can I tell you? But, that's it. That's my answer. If you like what I said and you think I'm a swell guy, then by all means become a member and send me money. And if you don't like what I said and if you think I'm a bad guy, then